This is case number 516 on the calendar in the matter of Thomas versus Jackson. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Sir, have a seat, please.
Ms. Thomas, it is your claim that the defendant's son broke your son's nose.
Correct.
You want to tell me what happened?
Well, I was walking down the street because my friends said they were going to play football that day. None of them were out there. And then Tyra and Jatisse, the two girls that were like friends that lived down the street, and they were yelling out the window. And I didn't understand what they're saying. I was like, well, I'm gonna go home. Then Joe started coming to me, and he was like, what's up, what's up? And then he hit me in my nose. And then I said, I don't want to fight you, and then he hit me in my nose, and it started to bleed.
So were you alone at the time he came up to you?
Yes.
Okay, now let's come to you, Ms. Thomas. How did you find out about your son's nose?
Well, the young lady, Tyra, is one of the girls that was with him, came running up to my...
I thought you said you were alone.
But they were coming out the door at the time. So as he walked up to me, they were coming out the door.
So one of the girls came to your house?
Yes, and she came running up to the door saying, hurry, hurry, Austin's bleeding, he needs you down the street. So I went running down there, and I saw him with his head back like this. There was blood everywhere, all over his clothes, on the ground. And I ripped off my tank top and put it to his face, and I asked him, do you know who did this to you? And they said, it's Joe, and he's right around the corner playing basketball. I said, take me to him. Take me to him right now. And I said, so you're the one who broke my son's nose. And he said, I ain't got time for your drama, B. And started going off on me. Like I was bothering his game of basketball when he just broke my son's nose. I said, so what, you just are going to break my son's nose and act like it's nothing? He's like, you. You know, and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to stand out here and argue with a bunch of kids. So I went home, I picked up the phone, I called 911. The cops came out, took him home to his cousin. I had him delivered in a cop car.
Now I'll hear from you.
At first I was walking home from school, and then my best friend asked me did I want to play basketball. So we was over his house playing basketball. His sister Tyra told him that some little boy around the corner was messing with her. So we went around the corner, and as we was about to fight him, I stepped in the middle and I told him not to hit him. Then he was talking stuff, and he called
Who's he was talking stuff?
Austin.
Did you know him from before?
No, never seen this.
So what kind of stuff was he talking?
He was like, I'm not scared of him, I'm not scared of him. And then he called me a B, and then I just took off my jacket and I hit him twice.
Do you think that's okay?
If I felt like if I wouldn't hit him, then he would hit me.
But he didn't hit you.
I felt like he was about to.
What made you think he was about to hit you?
Because the way he looked at me.
The way he looked at you?
The way he looked at me.
Now, after you hit him twice in the nose, you went back to play basketball.
Yes.
And then his mother came up to you. She just told me that you cursed at her.
No.
Oh, yes, you did.
Well, she was cussing at me. She actually threatened me.
Well, how did she threaten you?
She said she would get a 15 or 16-year-old on me, and she said she'll kill me. That's when she stepped down the street like she was going to hit me, but my best friend, he stepped in front of me and told her to go on because she's not hitting me.
You have a police report?
Yes, I do.
Were you arrested?
Well, took it home, yeah.
After you were taken home, did you have to appear in juvenile court?
No.
Why didn't you press charges against him?
I did press charges, Your Honor, but they were telling me even if I filed him and received a misdemeanor on him for the assault charges, the only pain and suffering or anything that I could get was $300.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about teaching him a lesson. How many times have you been in a police car?
Just twice.
When before that were you in a police car?
Some little kids was busting windows, and they mistakenly put me in the police car on accident, and it wasn't me.
It wasn't you?
No.
Let me see your bills.
Your Honor, can I say something?
Yes.
You know, and also when Austin after he had broke his nose, he told my son, he said to everybody in the neighborhood, he kept saying, well, that's what the white boy gets. That's what the white boy gets, you know. And my son, granted, he is light-skinned, but I don't care what shade you are, you know what I mean? This isn't about what color you are. It's about violating my child.
Absolutely right.
So that was another thing, because they think he's a white boy, and he's not just a white boy.
No, he's a boy.
Right, exactly.
He's a boy. What?
I don't feel like it's a racial thing here because my son is not racist, not at all.
He may not be, but he certainly has a little bit of a violent tendency.
I mean, that's all kids is like that when
No,
you're
all kids aren't like
this
that.
he was
All kids aren't
he
like
was
that.
cursing too.
Cursing
So-
is one thing. Listen to me.
Uh-huh.
Your son went up to him, came around the corner, came up to him, and hit him in the face because he didn't like the way he looked at him, according to him.
No.
He looked as if he might be going to hit him, so he hit him first, twice. But he went looking for him. He came around the corner, and before he even found out what was going on, I mean, I read his answer. His answer was he was protecting some little girl that he thought he was teasing. He was in a confrontation with another friend. That's a lot of baloney. He came around the corner, and he hit him twice. And he's responsible. He's responsible for his broken nose. He's responsible for all the medical bills, and he's responsible for pain and suffering. He's responsible for that.
I understand that.
What? You want to say something, sir?
Yes. Your Honor, when I received a phone call from my wife that the incident had taken place, I rushed home. During the time that my wife was filing a report, she had noticed that two of the young men that were at the scene were walking by snickering. And so I asked him to come here, and I asked him, I said, you know what, I want to know which one of you two were the one calling my wife out of her name. And they began to tell me that Joe is one of the kids in the neighborhood that he thinks he has to go for bad or whatnot. He has to prove something to himself. And that the girls that he accuses my son of making fun of, we have written testimonies from the young ladies. They warned Austin to run because they knew that Joe was going to go up to him and fight him for no reason at all. I asked the police officer to make sure his mother calls us. She wanted to know what happened, and she explained to me that, you know, it doesn't surprise her that her son, you know, might have did this, but she
never
wanted to
said
hear
that.
both. She wanted to hear both sides of the story. She is well aware that Joe is one way with her and another way out in the neighborhood, and she can't understand why he acts that way because her other children, her other young boys, don't act that way.
His neighbor, 12-year-old Joel Jackson, punched him in the face and broke his nose. Joel says he thought Austin was going to hit him first.
Go ahead.
Your Honor, I spoke to her one time as Austin's mother. She informed me that she wants to hurry up and get the court situation over with. And I just hung up on her. I flat out hung up on her. You know, how are you going to call me and tell me that we need to hurry up and get this over with? Well, so would I, but I have to go to an ENT for my son's nose. His nose has to be broke now 2 times because he has a lump coming out of the side of his nose. You know, hello, this doesn't end for me just because I go to court.
So you have to do additional medical procedures other than the $2,059 that you've already spent.
Yes, it's $85 just for us to show our face into the ENT clinic.
Could you step up, please? I want to take a look at your nose. Where is it broken?
It's broke right down here, right in here.
You have any medical report in your file?
Yes, I do.
Can I see you step back to your folks, please? Do you have any other report with regard to the procedure for re-breaking his nose and resetting it?
I asked them what it will cost for Austin's nose. They said every nose varies. Some noses run $1,000, some runs $500. They just don't know until they see it.
Well, right now you have about $2,100 in out-of-pocket expenses just for his medical visits.
Yes, and I have no insurance because my husband got a better paying job, and his insurance doesn't even kick in for 90 days. So this is, every time I've went, it's self-pay, self-pay. I mean, we work for a living.
Yes, we do.
Well, I'm glad that you're
I
working.
agree with that.
I'm glad that you're working. She's not going to have any of these expenses out of pocket. You had no right to hit him. Don't look up at the sky. You're just very, very lucky that they didn't pursue this matter in juvenile court because they probably wouldn't have put you away, but you would have had a record. How old are you?
12.
12. So you would have had a record at age 12. That's not very smart. How many brothers do you have?
2.
They ever been in jail?
No.
They nice boys?
Yes.
Good. So you have good examples at home. What happened to you?
Nothing.
Ever been suspended for fighting in school?
Yes.
Yeah, sure. How did I know that? How do you think I knew that?
I don't know.
Wasn't that a good question? Look, I'm only giving you your medical bills up until today. plus some additional costs that you incurred. But you may have to bring an additional suit once you have additional medical costs, because I can't anticipate what those medical bills are going to be. Do you understand?
Yes.
So I'm issuing a judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $2,500. It covers your bills until today.
Thank you, Your Honor.
That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I don't appreciate her cussing out my son the way she did.
When you see your child bleeding on a street and he's left there and you're just going to protect your child, I would say that sometimes you say things that just is not of you, but out of, frustration and anger.
And now the next case.
All parties on Zavala versus Johnson. Step forward, please.
20-year-old salesperson Brooklyn Zavala is suing her sister-in-law, 23-year-old restaurant manager Tiana Johnson, for babysitting fees and damage to her vehicle.
Mrs. Zavala, the defendant is your sister-in-law.
Yes.
According to your complaint, you provided daycare services for your sister-in-law's children.
Yes.
Then she decided to move. You did provide childcare for a few days, for which you were not paid.
Correct.
And then on the day that your sister-in-law was moving, it is your claim that she damaged a car of yours.
True.
What was your arrangement with regard to the childcare?
I was to get paid $2.37 per hour.
How did you come
Per
to that
child.
figure?
Because that's what the state was allowing her to get. I was just to get the whole check from the Health and Welfare Office. I got a check for May, June, and July. And then in August, I watched them for 5 days.
Which 5 days in August?
2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th.
Ms. Johnson, did you get a check from the state for those dates in August?
No, I did not.
Why?
Because they were taking me off that program at that time because I was moving.
When
She
did-
was supposed to get a check. I have record right here that it got sent back to Health and Welfare
Let me see.
from her caseworker.
My caseworker told me that I was not getting a check for that month.
So it was returned.
Right.
So she did not, you're not claiming that she got the money and just didn't
Right.
give it to you.
Right. I just didn't get paid.
Well, she's not going to pay you. You have to get your money from the state. That was your agreement.
They only pay a portion on that, so she would also have to pay on top of that.
Why? That wasn't your agreement.
Because
That wasn't your agreement, Ms. Zavala.
true.
Your agreement was that whatever money she received from the state, you would get.
Right.
And you never got any additional monies in the months that you did watch the children,
True.
right? So why would you expect additional monies in August?
I estimated it from $2.37 for each child per hour.
Do you understand what
Yes,
I'm
I
saying
do.
to you?
I do.
I don't know what we're fighting about here for 5 days worth of daycare. If two people who are related to each other, except maybe the fight's about this damaged truck. So you want to tell me about the damaged truck?
Well, the morning of the 8th of August, we got a phone call saying we needed to come to Tiana's. Tiana had something to tell us. We were told she was leaving town because she was scared to death if her husband was going to kill her, which is her witness right now.
Go ahead.
Her brother and her also got in an argument, and because he was telling her that she shouldn't pick up and leave like that with 3 children.
Who should she leave the children with?
We were going to offer, or Sean and Christine, and then Delano and Amanda, which is also her brother and sister-in-law.
Okay. What happened when she left?
Well, we helped her pack, and a couple hours later, she just was leaving, wasn't watching where she was going, and backed into my car. She said sorry, didn't even get out of her van, and then left.
She was upset, I assume, right?
No, she was fine by then because we were just packing up and leaving. She was in a hurry to leave
Why do you think she was in a hurry?
because she had to meet with a couple people in Oregon that she was going with.
She said she had to leave because she was deathly afraid of her husband. You don't think that picking up and leaving and packing up very quickly and leaving with your 3 children, you're upset? I mean, I'm not giving...
That happened a month or 2 prior to her leaving. She was still going up and taking the kids up to his house
Because he's their father.
until 2 o'clock in the morning, and she's deathly afraid of him. These are the car estimates and pictures.
I also have a blue book value of the car as a trade-in and as retail value.
Well, you definitely hit her car.
She was parked at an angle right in my blind spot on a cul-de-sac, which you're supposed to be parked with the curve. She was parked straight out this way. And when I was backing out, I could not see her, and I hit her like this.
Okay. $900 worth of damage.
And the blue book value of the car as a trade-in is $375, and the retail value is $1,400. I think that's a large amount for damage. It's almost as much as the car is worth.
So what do you think the right thing to do is?
Actually, 4 days before she filed this suit, I had told my brother that I was going to give them some money. And she has not tried to contact me, tried to resolve anything, to even try to work out a payment or anything.
Well, what is everybody so mad about?
I think she's mad because I left and she was out of a job.
No, because I went and got a job 2 weeks later.
All I heard that day that I was leaving was, what about the check? What about the check? No, you know, I'm going to miss you or anything. It was all about the check,
No.
the money.
Wrong, because I was trying to talk her out of going. I was scared for the kids' welfare because the van wasn't going to make it to West
And it did.
Virginia.
Did it make it?
No.
No.
She left it on the side of a highway and with all of their belongings in it, pretty much.
No, I didn't. I
Where-
got the belongings there. My children were safe. My children were back safe.
Did the van die?
The transmission went out
How did you get to your final destination?
with the rest of the party that I was traveling with. We had 3 different cars going
Where were you going? Just my
to West Virginia.
what?
I had some friends up there.
Who were the other
Go
people?
stay there. Some cousins, longtime friends of the family.
Well, were they going to live too? Mm-hmm. You just decided to all leave at the same time to go to West Virginia to live?
Right, there was a lot of circumstances following that.
Well, just give it to me in 30 seconds or less, would you?
Okay, they were deciding to leave, so I went over there. They offered me to go with them, so I decided, yeah, I would
Where
go.
were you all going? I mean, were you going to a farmhouse someplace? Where were you going to live?
No, I have a really good friend that lives up there, and she offered for me to stay with her.
How long did you stay there?
I stayed there a matter of 2 months.
And then where did you come?
I had to come back to the state of Idaho
Why?
for a custody hearing.
And then you reconciled with your husband?
Somewhat, yes.
What does somewhat mean?
We're working on the
Do you
situation.
live under the same roof?
No.
What?
Can I stand up?
Of course, if you want to speak.
Yeah, what I was told by his mother was that,
It's hearsay.
well, even he admitted it, she came back down for that custody hearing plus a battery hearing
Against him.
against him, and then they were still together during that whole issue. They came back and they're still together now, from what I hear.
I guess.
And the whole thing with the car is, when she was up in West Virginia, I talked to her, said, you need to start making some payments. And that was like almost a year went by and nothing happened.
You owe them $900 to fix their car. With regard to the money for your 5 days of babysitting, I suggest that you take that up with the state.
Okay.
Do you understand?
Yes.
Good. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $900. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out. Order. All rise. Your Honor, this is case number 435 on the calendar in the matter of Beauchamp versus Rubino. Parties have been sworn in. Judge, you may be seated. Folks, have seats, please.
Mr. Beauchamp, according to your complaint, you and the defendant were friends. And beginning sometime in 1999, you started to make a series of small loans to the defendant. In total, you say $500. Friendship terminated, and you want your money.
Yes, ma'am.
The defendant says that no time did she borrow $500 from you. She said that she only borrowed $200, but because of the stress that you put her through, she doesn't owe you anything and is counterclaiming for that stress in the amount of $500. What kind of loans, Mr. Beauchamp?
I loaned Miss Rubino a total of $500 from October through December of 1999. The first time she asked me to borrow $100 for her dog. I guess he needed some care or something, so I did loan her the $100. On the second occasion, she had a bed on layaway at a furniture store, and she was about $100 short for that. I did offer to loan her the money for that. And she had wrote a series of bad checks at a bar in Omaha, and she needed to borrow some money to cover those checks, and I did loan that to her.
How much?
The total came to about $500.
No. Not what I asked you. You say the total. This is a court, sir.
Yes.
$100 for the dog, $100 for the bed. How much was the third loan, sir?
That would have been the amount of about $120.
What else?
And then the next loan, the final loan, would have been to, again, cover checks in her checking account. And
That's
that total,
not true.
Just a minute.
And that came to a total of about $500.
Mr. Beauchamp, so far you haven't established to my satisfaction that you loaned her any money. Because when somebody comes to court, they have dates. They say, on such and such a date, I made a loan in the amount of $100. 2 days later, a week later, I made a loan of another $100. Then you don't tell me it was about $120. And after that, well, all of them totaled $500. You have no clue. You should keep a record of when you lend somebody money.
I do have a letter in my possession that she had sent to me
Then let me see
in
it,
November.
sir.
Okay.
Maybe that will help me.
It's a letter written by Miss Rubino.
Ah, so you acknowledge you owed him $500.
That was before. I said that to basically get him off my back.
No.
That's
Listen to
true.
me. Listen to me.
Yes, I did it one time. I no longer feel that way. Well, no,
This
and there's
was only a
reasons.
few months ago, madam. A few months ago, you wrote what I consider a straightforward letter indicating that you had been friends with the plaintiff,
yes.
that clearly in your mind he wanted more than just a friendship. You were not interested in anything more than a friendship.
True.
And that you felt as if because of the way he feels, do I look as if I need help? Because of the way he feels, you shouldn't even continue with a friendship. Pretty straightforward letter and put very well. I have your name, address, etc., and will begin paying you the monies owed, $500, as soon as I am financially able. Thank you for your helping me, as I was desperate. Okay. You should keep better notes, Mr. Beauchamp. It would make my life much easier. You're just lucky that you have this letter. Otherwise, you'd be out of luck.
Yes, ma'am.
Good. I'm listening.
I do feel that I owe him $100 for my dog's situation. I do have a pet.
No, listen to me.
I borrowed that.
Shh,
Okay.
listen to me. November 11th of the year 2000, you wrote him this letter acknowledging a debt in the amount of $500. Tell me what happened after November 11th of the year 2000 that you believe vitiates, does away with the debt.
I think that letter is dated November 17th. The reason I'm pointing that out is my birthday was on November 12th.
November 11th.
Okay.
17th is a 1-7. This is a 1-1.
Okay, well, I know I wrote that right after my birthday in which he proposed to me. When I said no, all of a sudden he was suing me for $500. Now I want to say, for one thing, had I just gone with him and made him happy or whatever by marrying him, it was just understood I would owe him no money. You know, we'd be the best of friends and there would be no problems. I won't go all into it, but he kind of thinks everything revolves around money, every emotion, everything. And I cannot be
Right now, that's what it's all about, madam. I'm not here thinking about your emotions.
I know.
I'm not a psychologist, psychiatrist, therapist, counselor, or anything else.
Okay.
I'm here talking about money.
Okay.
On the 11th of November of the
Yes.
year 2000, you acknowledged a debt to him in the amount of $500. I want you to explain to me, after November 11th, did you pay him? Did you pay him back?
No.
Did you have a conversation with him where he said, I am forgiving the loan?
Okay, the $100 loan?
The $500 loan.
No.
So now you tell me why you don't owe him the money.
I do not any longer feel like I owe him any money because he has stalked me, showed up at family functions, and sang love songs to me when I never even invited him. He has embarrassed me, told lies, very personal lies to my sister, to my family, that have been humiliating. We always were just friends, but because he wanted it to be more, he kind of painted this picture to everyone around us.
When did you realize he wanted it to be more?
Oh, about 3 or 4 months into the relationship. I wasn't sure, but after I kept reiterating that we were just friends, about 3 or 4 months, I kind of thought, well, there might not be any talking him into just being friends.
After that, did you take any money from him?
After that,
Yeah.
no, I didn't take any money from him, but we would go out to shopping
Just a
malls.
second.
We would go out. Okay.
Just a second. When did you first meet her?
I first met her in April of 1999.
And these loans didn't begin until October of 1999.
Yes, ma'am, that is correct.
So if you say that you knew within the first 3 months, you
I wasn't
started
positive.
taking money
All right.
well after you knew that he cared for you in a different way than you cared for him.
I wasn't positive, Your Honor. I just had a gut feeling that there was no talking him out of just being friends, and he wanted more out of the friendship. I wasn't
Then
positive.
you should have written
but
this
I
letter a long time ago and not compounded your foolishness by taking money from him. Bird, look at the second hand on your watch. The defendant has 30 seconds to tell me about her counterclaim.
I do honestly believe that because on the basis of 2 factors that I do not owe Mr. Beauchamp.
I'm talking
$500.
about your counterclaim, madam, and you're wasting time.
Okay. The reason is because I encouraged my dad to hire him for at least $1,200 of projects. My dad would ask me-
Counterclaim.
Well, this is the $500. This is relating to.
He's going to get the $500, madam. Now I'm talking about your counterclaim.
Okay.
You have a counterclaim for harassment.
Okay.
Mental anguish.
Your Honor, may I speak?
No,
wait,
I didn't
'cause
ask you a question. Sit down.
Judge, 30 seconds is up.
Maybe
Okay,
she
well-
didn't understand.
Okay.
So we'll
I
give her
didn't
another 30
understand, I'm
seconds. Counterclaim.
Okay.
Stress.
The emotional distress
Yeah.
was basically him harassing me, stalking me, lying about us having a personal relationship, an intimate relationship when we never did, and
You don't get paid
the
for
mental
that.
distress.
You don't
I
get
went
paid
to a
for that.
psychiatrist over it.
Maybe if you had terminated your friendship with him when you first had a clue, madam, that he was becoming more emotionally involved with you than you were with him, then you wouldn't be seeing a psychiatrist right now. So I'm dismissing your counterclaim. On your claim, sir, I find that she has acknowledged the debt, she has not paid the debt, you have not forgiven the debt, you are entitled to your money, judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $500. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
And now the next case.
All parties on Harrelson versus Stracker. Step forward, please.
59-year-old corporate president Seth Harrelson is suing 53-year-old Shirley Stracker and her husband William. Seth says the Stracker's 17-year-old son Jonathan wrecked his daughter's car.
All right, Mr. Harrelson, this is your daughter, I assume?
Yes, Your Honor.
She's 16,
Yes, she is.
and you purchased a car for her.
We actually leased the car for her. We put the down payment for her, and she makes the payments.
And according to your complaint, there came a time when your daughter was out with her new car. You can stand up here with your father. And the defendant's son was there, and he asked if he could drive the car, right?
Correct.
And you said okay.
After asking him if he had a license.
You asked him if he had a license. He said yes.
Yes, Your Honor.
And you let him drive the car.
Yes, Your Honor.
He had an accident, and you want the defendants to pay for all of the unreimbursed expenses that your insurance didn't cover. Mr. and Mrs. Stracker say they didn't have the confidence in their son to let him take driver's ed, to let him have a driver's license. They told him they did not want him to drive yet, and that they should not be held responsible because your daughter let him drive the car. It's a very interesting scenario. Why don't you stand up, sir? Did you and your dad ever have a conversation about letting any of your friends drive your car?
I believe so.
Of course you did. I mean, that sounds normal.
That
Right?
car was for her use only.
Right. So why did you let him drive the car?
Because at the time I was tired and my boyfriend was going to drive the car, but he asked and offered if he could drive, and so I agreed.
Well, did you have your father's permission to let your boyfriend drive the car?
No.
I assume that your boyfriend has driven the car before,
Yes.
without your parents' permission.
Yes.
You didn't know that anybody else was driving this car, I assume.
Wasn't aware of it.
I'm sure. I've had kids of my own who were 16, who I had this discussion with 5 times over.
But we know nothing until after it happens, and then we get smarter.
Right. Tell me about the accident.
We were coming down the street, and upon making a right turn, he stopped in the middle of the lane because he almost missed the street he was supposed to turn right on. And he went to make the right turn, but he made it too late. He pulled into the opposing traffic lane. An oncoming car was coming. He jerked the wheel to the right. He hit off of a curb. The impact from the curb sent us all the way across the other side of the street onto another curb, a lawn, and into a bush, which stopped us from hitting the fence.
What happened when your father found out that he was driving the car?
He was angry. I was grounded for a while.
Now, when did your son turn 16?
July 16th.
Did he ask you to take driver's ed and all that other stuff that kids ask you to take?
Well, I don't recall if he asked me, but I had planned on letting him take it later on, you know, but not now.
Why?
Well, I have 4 sons, and my 3 older ones, I did not allow them to get a car or get their license until they were able to pay for their own car, their own insurance. So, and this was just the rules, so that was the way I was going to have it with him also.
Did you tell him that?
Well, he knew that. Yeah, I've told him that.
What's your first name?
Jonathan.
So you never took driver's ed?
No.
So tell me why you asked Lacey if you could drive the car.
Well, I was just joking around. I didn't really think that she'd let me drive the car. And then she did let me drive the car, which was surprising because she actually did know I did not have a license.
How did she know that?
We've known each other for a while. Everyone in our group of friends makes fun of me because they know I'm not getting my license till I'm probably around 18 or 19, so.
That still doesn't answer my question, Jonathan. Why did you ask her if you could drive the car?
Well, I wasn't really thinking that she'd let me. I was just joking around. It was supposed to be a joke, like.
Okay, so now it was a joke, and then she said okay.
Yeah. And then I stupidly got in the driver's seat, so.
You knew that was wrong.
Yes.
Now, your mother has told me that there were clear rules in your family about not having a driver's license. Were there ever any discussions, arguments in your house, little tiffs about the driver's license?
No, we never.
You're a good kid. I don't know if I could get away with that. Let me tell you why this case presents a problem to me, Mr. Harrelson. Ordinarily, I would say, well, he clearly is responsible for at least part of the damage to your car because he did, in fact, get behind the wheel, drove it, and he caused damage to your car, and why should you have to shoulder that yourself? The issue that's presented is, should his parents, who have done everything that they can to ensure that he not drive a car, they've made it clear to him that until he is responsible enough, he does not have their permission to do it, and they've acted on what they said. You felt you could trust your daughter, right?
Correct. I think that my only rebuttal to that would be the fact, okay, my daughter is 16. She wanted to drive a car. I took the time to take her out to parking lots, to school grounds, to big areas where there was no traffic to teach her how to responsibly drive a car. Okay, I took those steps. Nobody had a sign around this boy's neck that says, I do not have a license. He knows he doesn't have a license. Nobody put him behind the wheel of that car except himself.
No, you're
Now,
wrong, sir.
so-
No, Mr. Harrelson, that's where you're mistaken. But for your daughter's permission, he would not have been behind the wheel of the car. And while you may have given her driving lessons and taught her how to drive responsibly, she still lacked the judgment and the maturity to be able to say to Jonathan, sorry, Jonathan, you can't drive my car whether you have a license or not because I've made a promise to my parents. So that my problem is, if I could hold Jonathan here partially responsible, I would do that. He's a minor, so I can't do that. I have to find that his parents knew or should have known or in some way enabled him to do what he did. And I find that quite to the contrary, they did everything to avoid his being behind the wheel of a car. That's why his parents aren't responsible. Now, if they knew that he had done this sort of thing before, I would say, yes, they are at least partially responsible. But I, quite frankly, Mr. Harrelson, cannot find them partially responsible. He is. I mean, she may have given you permission, given you the car keys, and turned the car over to you, but nobody grabbed you by the throat and put you into the car. So, Mr. Harrelson, I will certainly tell young Jonathan here that he's a very young man, and if he wants to start his life out right, taking care of his own obligations, and if you want to be mature enough, and if you want to drive a car before you're 50 years old, because I guarantee you, I'm looking at your mother in your mother's house, you ain't going to drive a car so soon. Now, in the law, because Jonathan is a minor, I cannot enter a judgment against him. I could enter a judgment against his parents for contributory negligence, because he was contributorily negligent in this accident. But I would have to satisfy myself that they in some way either knew, actively or tacitly, or encouraged him to get behind the wheel of a car, any car, and that would be by participating in him getting a license, by participating in driver's ed. Quite the contrary. In their case, sir, he was told, you can't drive. But you have to understand, Mr. Harrelson, but for the actions of your agent, and in this situation, your daughter was your agent, because you chose to give her a car. You gave her certain rules, which she violated with regard to other people driving the car. So, but for her actions, we would not be here today. Therefore, I can impugn her negligence in letting him drive that car to you. His parents didn't allow him to do that. And if I were to say that they were financially responsible to you, I would be impugning his negligence to them, and they did everything that they could to see to it that their son did not drive a car until they thought he was responsible. I'm telling you, your daughter may know how to drive a car, but she violated your trust on many more than this one occasion.
23-year-old Lisa Murray is suing her ex-boyfriend, 21-year-old Ish Easton, for the cost of a plane ticket to New Jersey. Ish claims Lisa is being vindictive.
Miss Murray, Mr. Easton and you dated briefly, according to your complaint, and you believe he owes you for an airline ticket that you purchased for him in order that the two of you go home to meet the parents. And then you broke up for the trip. Mr. Easton says that the going home to meet the parents was strictly your idea. He never asked you to buy the ticket. You bought it on your own, so you pay for it, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. When did you meet him?
February 2006. We were working together.
And when did you start dating?
We started dating in the beginning of June 2006.
And when did you want to go and introduce him to your family?
Through the month of June, or in the beginning of July 2006, our relationship became serious.
No. You're talking so fast I can hardly understand you. I asked you a simple question. When did you want to take him home to meet your parents?
July 2006.
After 4 weeks? Why?
Well, I had missed my family very much, and he also said that he would like to go. He was excited about going to see New York City and seeing New Jersey.
If he was so excited, why didn't he buy his own ticket?
He currently did not have the money at the time, nor did he have a credit card.
What was the arrangement that you made with him?
That when we came back from our trip, that he would be reimbursing me.
And when did you break up?
September.
And when were you supposed to go to New York?
September 9th, 2006.
I'll hear you.
After she had initially brought the idea to go visit her parents, I told her then, I was like, well, I don't have money.
No, look at me, look at me.
Oh, I told her then, I don't have money to pay you back for any kind of ticket before we even discussed repaying anything.
Why would you say that to her? I thought you met at work.
This is after we started dating, man.
No, listen to me. You're not listening. You don't have your listening ears on. You said, I don't have any money. And she just told me that you met at work in February of 2006. What kind of work were you doing?
I, at the time, was working at Home Depot, man.
And in July, where were you working?
I worked for a structural engineering firm.
And in August?
Still work there, man.
Okay, so you were working, you were employed.
Yes.
Do you have children?
No, before dating Miss Murray, I was in a previous relationship. Separating from that relationship, I had to move back home. But upon moving back home, my parents were like, well, you got to help pay bills and stuff like that. So I pay half of everything.
So?
Leaving pretty much nothing.
Well, that's not true. You have money to eat out, right?
On occasion, ma'am. And that was money that I was like, Mom, you know, can I borrow $50 to go out? Or
Mr. Easton, when you discussed with Miss Murray going to New York, I don't believe that you said to her, I don't have the money to pay you now, and I'll never have the money to pay you back. Because I don't think that under those circumstances she would have continued to see you, because that would have sounded like something a bum would say. I don't have money now, maybe. I'll never have money to pay you back. I wouldn't have taken you to meet my parents. I would have been humiliated to take you. You're a bum. If you say, I'll never have any money to buy an airline ticket for $295. So I don't believe that you said that to her. I believe that you probably said to her, I don't have money to pay for it now. That I believe. Now, when did she buy the ticket?
She called me and was like, I bought tickets to go to New Jersey.
No, you had already discussed it. So don't say it came as a surprise to you. It didn't come as a surprise.
I don't know the exact date of her
When did you
buying
purchase the tickets?
July 25th, I purchased the tickets. I have phone calls.
Shh. And she told you that she purchased them in July?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. And you were working in Home Depot?
I was working at Home Depot and the engineering firm at the same time.
So two places?
Yes, ma'am.
What did you do with the ticket?
I was unable to refund it because he broke up with me within 24 hours prior to canceling it.
You have the bill?
Yes.
Why did you break up right before you were ready to leave from New York, sir?
Well, there was a span of like 2 weeks where her and I barely ever saw each other. And that was because my work schedule at the engineering firm went from a regular 8-hour day to 9 to 12-hour days. And I didn't have time to see her. It was work, home, work, bed, pretty much.
Okay.
A gentleman that I play football with, his girlfriend and Miss Murray became very good friends, hanging out, had informed me that the plaintiff had gone to MySpace and read a quote that I'd written on MySpace. And that was one of the first issues. One of the other issues was
Did you say something not nice about her?
I didn't say anything toward her at all. The quote that I left on my page said, due to the pain caused by love, to love I say. And that was nothing toward her previous relationship exactly to that. Then it went from that to she had been saying, oh, I don't have money, I don't have money, I don't have money. Well, then my friend's girlfriend is like, oh, we went shopping today. And Lisa bought this, and Lisa bought that, and Lisa bought this.
What does it make any difference to you whether she said, I don't have money?
Well, because if you're going to tell me you don't have money, then how you going to turn around and go shopping?
She wasn't asking for money from you, was she?
Initially broke up with her because she lies. You can't trust a liar. You can trust a thief because you know they're going to steal. You can trust a killer, you know they're going to kill, but you can't trust a liar. I asked her, I said, well, did you go on my MySpace page and read that? She said no. And before that, I said, is there anything you want to tell me about that you haven't said to me in the past? No, there's nothing I can think of.
You're going to get your $2 back for the ticket. Before you leave, you should get down on the floor, on all fours, kiss the ground, and say, God, thank you for terminating this relationship, because this guy is no good. No bargain, no good, no way. I don't know much about you. I don't know if you're good, but I can tell you right now, he's a bum. He's always going to be a bum, because he makes excuses for what he does that bear no resemblance to reality. That's what he just did. He just gave me a whole cock and bull story. In reality, he probably found somebody else to cover some of his bills. Because when someone is so smitten with a woman, they don't not see them for 2 weeks. They may give up sleeping, but they won't go work, job, work, school, work, and not see the person for whom they have lost their heart. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
So he made up a whole big story. Nothing in his story was true. So you're a very lucky girl that you got rid of him, because for somebody who doesn't like lying, he has become very proficient at it. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $295. That's all.
Brenda O'Henley and her brother Daniel are suing their former tenant, Jared Debnam, for unpaid rent and utilities. Jared says his living arrangements were substandard, so he's not paying.
You are brother and sister, is that correct? Yes. You bought a condo together?
Yes, 2 years ago.
You live together?
Yes.
Great. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Get along?
Yeah, for the most part.
Fabulous. How much was this condo?
It was $770,000. It's now worth $950,000.
Perfect. So you bought this condo and you did a very foolish thing. You decided to take in a third roommate.
Yes.
That would be you. And according to your complaint, he owes you a whole bunch of money for rent, and primarily for rent, utilities. Mr. Debnam says, well, there was never really a formal agreement about him paying so much per month, and he's got a whole host of other problems that he encountered while living with you. You moved a girlfriend in shortly after he moved in, so he didn't feel as if that was right. There was a leak, and some of his clothes got moldy, right?
Correct.
Have you always lived in the United States of America?
Yes, I have.
So you know that this is what we call a free country.
Correct.
If you don't like something, or if you don't like a place where you're living, what can you do?
Choose to move on?
You don't choose to stay, kvetch, and don't pay. You move on to where there isn't a girlfriend, where there isn't a leak, where there isn't mold, but you don't stay and don't pay. Now, you lived there for a year, and you did pay some money in a bulk. You know, you didn't pay it by month because you were sort of not working, whatever. You got a check, and you gave them $4,000.
Well, that was just a part of the check from one of my financial aid checks.
Did you have your own bedroom?
Yes.
Did you have your own bathroom?
No.
Who did you share the bathroom with?
Everybody that used the house. As far as the communal upstairs bathroom, so it wasn't just my bathroom.
And what were you supposed to pay a month?
Before we moved in, I told him, being a graduating senior, that my money was based solely upon receiving periodic financial aid checks, at which time I told him this is how I would be able to pay him whatever money. And so he knew about this situation before.
Tell me what he knew.
He knew that I would be getting financial aid checks each semester.
Fine.
And
So
that
you
from
did
those
get a-
checks, I would pay him what I could towards the money for living at his place.
Without any set amount? So you could have given him, let's say, $500 for 6 months, and that would have been okay.
No, Your Honor. He wanted to pay, or come to a limit to pay $750 a month.
Ah, okay. You know, I knew if you let you talk long enough, if I let you talk long enough, eventually we were going to get someplace close to the truth, sir. So, according to you, he wanted $750 a month, which you agreed to pay when you got your financial aid checks.
Correct.
How much did you give him?
A little less than $7,500 total.
So that would be for 10 months. Did he give you $7,500?
Overtime, yes.
So how much do you think he owes you?
I've come up with about $6,000.
For what?
Well, it was $750 plus utilities and a sticker for him to park his car
I actually have a breakdown of the whole payment history that I
I don't need the
received.
whole payment history. If you acknowledge that he paid you $7,500, that's for 10 months. That means he owes you 3 months' rent, which is $2,250.
Well, do you not include utilities in that?
It does not include utilities,
Our
sir.
agreement included utilities.
Show me in writing. Well, what I'm telling you is, if you allow somebody to live with you for 13 months and do not collect utilities from them on a regular basis, I'm not going to waste my precious time, 2 graduate degrees, and go over month-to-month Con Edison bills. What I'm telling you is, if you got $750 a month from him, Mr. O'Henley, we wouldn't be standing here today.
Exactly.
Okay. And that's exactly what I'm going to give you. $750 a month for 13 months. He's already paid you for 10, which means he owes you $2,250. Now, is there any reason why I shouldn't enter a judgment in that amount, sir?
Just for the living condition that I was provided with when living at this place. This is why he didn't receive, or what I feel he got paid the full amount of what I was provided living at this place.
That's why we talked about a free country,
Correct,
Mr. Debnam.
Correct. And so
Free
that
country
was my
means
only
you.
complaint.
Who's the person that's raising her hand that's irritating
I would
me?
agree. Except for I just didn't have the opportunity.
Who's the person raising their hand that's irritating me?
This is my fiance. And she's the person who lived with me at this place, not lived, but came and stayed at my place. Or not
So
our
it
place,
wasn't
excuse me.
only his girlfriend that stayed. Your
No.
girlfriend stayed too.
I'm sorry.
Just a second.
4 or 5 days a week.
So it wasn't only his girlfriend that stayed. It was your girlfriend that stayed.
My girlfriend would come there every other weekend and spend
So?
the weekend. Correct.
So she stayed. And if she didn't like living there because of the cold and the mold, she wouldn't have come. Right?
Right.
Should have gone to her house. By not stand there and kvetch, sir, that you didn't like the circumstances and you stayed anyway. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $2,250. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
22-year-old daycare provider Melanie Bartlett is suing former client Thomas Jones for unpaid daycare fees and late charges. Thomas says Melanie left his son in the care of a certified schizophrenic.
Miss Bartlett, you run a daycare service, is that right?
Yes, I do.
And Mr. Jones had one child,
Yes.
a little boy,
Yes, ma'am.
enrolled in your daycare. Is your claim that he took the child out of daycare without giving you notice, that he owes you for a certain period of time that the child was there when he didn't pay, and he also owes you for a whole bunch of late fees because he took the child out without notice? Mr. Jones says that he owes you some money for the daycare.
That's correct, Your Honor.
It is his claim that he had good cause to remove his son from your daycare because you were not properly caring for him.
That is not true, Your Honor.
So let's resolve what we can resolve, and then we'll get on to what's in dispute. How much money, Mr. Jones, do you owe her for the time your son, who was how old at the time?
14 and a half, 15 months, Your Honor.
How much do you owe Miss Bartlett for the time she did, in fact, care for him?
Approximately 2 weeks, Your Honor.
Okay.
That's
And
untrue. He paid me the first week, and then after that, I had no other payment from him.
Well, I'm trying to recall. First weeks were paid in full. The second week, I received partial payment. That's what you said.
$45.
Well,
Yes.
but you have to add that.
Yes.
So we paid you partially.
Yes.
For the second week. So each week was how much? Ms. Bartlett?
$160. And the late fees are $10.
Just a second. $435 is what you owe her for the time your son was there and you didn't pay.
That's correct, ma'am.
Now let's get to termination fee and all of that stuff. Miss Bartlett, how many children do you take care of?
I just started my daycare, so I was in the process of getting my license, and he was my first customer.
Were you licensed at the time?
No. I made him aware of that. I have the paperwork that I was in the process of getting the license, and
That's
I made him
untrue, Your
aware
Honor.
of that when he enrolled his son.
At the time you took care of him, you were not a licensed daycare provider. Is
No.
that what you're telling me?
I was in the process of getting the license. It was just paperwork.
At the time you
No.
took care of his son, you were not a licensed daycare provider.
No.
Did you know that?
No, ma'am.
How did you locate her?
Through the internet.
Do you have a copy of the ad?
Unfortunately, I do not, Your Honor.
I do.
Let me see it, please. Oh, well, this is deceptive, Miss Bartlett. Melanie Bartlett, that's you. License number upon request.
The only choice was to put in a license number or to say upon request. And I was
No,
in
the
process.
choice is I don't have one. That's your choice. When I say it's deceptive, it says upon request. Upon request means I have one and I'll give it to you if you ask me for it. So that's deceptive. Now let me see the contract that he signed. In the contract, do you say that you are not licensed?
I didn't mention anything about being licensed or not licensed in the contract, no.
Well, then that's deceptive, Miss Bartlett. That's one thing. Got to ask questions.
Yes,
Better questions when you're turning over the most precious commodity that you have to somebody that you don't know your license. Check to make sure it's a valid license with the state. You know how to do that now?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
All right. The most egregious thing, if it's true, is he removed the child from your care during the second week in October. Is that right?
Approximately that, yes, ma'am.
And on October 7th, according to you, something happened. Want to tell me what happened?
I was informed by Melanie that she was going to a funeral. She asked if she could take my son to this funeral. She told me her mother would be going to watch my son.
That is untrue.
I don't want to hear.
I agreed to this, and I later found out that my son was left in the care of someone who was not qualified, alone in a car with him for, I don't know how long, maybe 20, 30 minutes. And this individual happens to be a state-diagnosed schizophrenic, and,
That's what you wrote.
And I'm very fortunate that nothing happened to my son, that this wasn't a point where, something went wrong.
And after that, you took him out.
Yes, ma'am.
Go.
He knew the day before. My ex-boyfriend was doing work with him, and he informed him of the funeral that I would be attending. He brought it up as soon as he came to pick up his child that day, and I told him I had a friend who could watch his son, and I told him it was the friend he was referring to, who happens to be schizophrenic.
That's not true.
And
Listen
he
to
said
me.
that there was nothing wrong.
Listen to me. You have to skip a funeral. You have a job.
I know.
Listen to me. Did you leave this child in a car?
Yes.
Wrong. You don't do that.
I left him in there with my friend. The air conditioning was on, and it was
Listen
10
to
minutes.
me. That's not your job. You have one job when you take care of a 14-month-old baby.
He
and
didn't
it's not
say
to go.
anything that
I'm
he didn't want
speaking
him
to
to
you.
go.
And it's not to go to a funeral. And it's not to leave a baby in a car. And it's not to leave a baby in a car with someone who is on disability for a psychiatric illness. Because according to what you said in your statement, because you anticipated what he was going to say, I was attending a funeral for my ex-boyfriend's family member. I left Jacob asleep in the car for a total of 10 minutes with a good friend. He is a schizophrenic, but he's been on his medication. Did they give you a license?
Yes.
That's a big mistake.
I would trust him with my own 9-month-old daughter. and
That's
he's watched
your
her on several
prerogative.
occasions.
Listen to me. That is your prerogative. You can trust him with your 9-month-old if you wish. You cannot trust him with somebody else's 9-year-old. Do I make myself clear?
Yes.
So you don't get termination fees or late fees or any other fees.
He knew the day before that...
Listen, I don't care what he knew. There is no way that you're going to tell me that you told him that you were going to leave his son in a car with a diagnosed schizophrenic but who's taking his medication. I don't believe that you told him all of that.
My mother was there when I told him
wouldn't
that.
believe you if you told me or your mother told me that. What I am going to give you is the money that he owes you for the time that he used your services.
It's written in the contract about the late fees. He gave me no notice. I had no
I
indication.
wouldn't give you a second notice.
I had no idea he was not going to bring his son back to me.
Listen
We
to me.
moved-
I don't care whether you knew or not. You're not getting it. Maybe your mother can explain it to you. Maybe the state where you live will listen. Because after what I said to you, if you still think that it was appropriate to leave a child in the care of a diagnosed schizophrenic who receives disability, that speaks to your judgment in caring for infants ages 0 to 2, which is what you wouldn't let you take care of a guppy age 0 to 2. Judgment for the
take care of
plaintiff
my
in the amount
daughter
of $435, and you're lucky you're getting it. That's all.
Kelly Babert claims former friends Heather and Mary Wilson have been harassing her. Kelly says the harassment started after she was stabbed by one of Heather's friends.
Now, it's case number 47 on the calendar in the matter of Johnston Barbera versus Wilson. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Ma'am, have a seat, please.
Miss Johnson?
Yes.
This is your daughter?
Yes.
Your daughter was the victim of very serious assault.
Yes.
When did that take place?
June 3rd of '05.
She was stabbed. Is that right? It is your claim that these two young ladies, one of them was involved in the stabbing, and since the perpetrator of the crime was arrested, both of them have engaged in a course of conduct that amounts to serious harassment of Kelly. And since their mother has not been responsible in seeing to it that they behave themselves, you want her to be responsible now and pay the damages. Ms. Wilson says her daughters were in no way involved in this and have not, in fact, been harassing your daughter. That's your defense. Is that right?
My daughters were not involved in the stabbing, no.
Okay. Who's Heather? Everybody can sit down except Heather. No, you stay there.
Oh, okay.
When did the stabbing take place, Heather?
June 3rd.
Was it a school day or not a school day?
It was a school day.
Who were you with after school?
I didn't go to school. I was sick that day.
But you didn't stay home.
I did stay home.
No, you didn't. You didn't stay home all day. Listen to me. Let's understand something. I don't care what you told your mother. I don't care what you told the police. I don't care what you told anybody. We're going to have a truthful conversation here. Otherwise, it's going to be very unpleasant for you. Do we understand each other?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, the name of the girl who stabbed Kelly is what?
Michelle Booker.
Otherwise known as?
Shelly Booker.
And she is a friend of yours?
Yes, ma'am.
When did you meet her on June the 3rd? What time?
I don't know exactly what time it was.
Morning or afternoon?
It was afternoon.
Did she come to your house or did you go to her house?
I didn't go to her house. We met up.
Met where?
At the corner store.
How did you know to meet her at the corner store?
She called me and asked her to meet her there.
What did she say to you when she called you?
She said that her and Kelly were going to begin in a fight, and I said, okay, and she asked me to meet her there, and I met her there.
She said she and Kelly, this young lady,
Yes,
is going to be in a fight, and she wanted you to meet her there for what reason?
I guess to get in a fight.
So you met her at the corner store. Who else was there?
Just me and her.
And where did you go?
To the park.
Who was in the park?
Datrion, Cameron.
Who's Datrion?
My friend.
Who else?
Cameron, my friend. Chris.
Chris? Who is Chris?
My friend.
Are you tired?
Yes, ma'am. And Marquis.
Who is Marquis?
My friend.
And Shelley?
And a whole bunch of other people that I didn't know.
Where was Kelly?
There.
With whom?
With all of them.
And what about Shelley? Were they Shelley's friends as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Uncross your hands. What happened when you got to the park?
They were yelling back and forth.
Stop moving. Who was yelling back and forth?
Kelly and Shelley.
What happened?
Well, I saw Heather and Shelley walking, and then they sat down like by the bleachers by us, and they were just talking for a little bit, and then we started yelling.
What were you yelling?
Just like we were just calling each other names, and
Who were you calling names?
Shelley, and it was going back and forth.
Why were you unhappy with Shelley? And why was Shelley unhappy with you?
We didn't get along. Like we just never really. I didn't really know her. Like I wasn't friends with her. It was just kind of an acquaintance.
Were you in the park intending to fight that day?
Yeah.
Who had called you?
Well, I was over at Chris's house with those people that she named off, and I can't remember if Chris called Shelley, but they were talking on the phone, and then plans kind of happened.
Plans kind of happened to have a fight?
Yes.
So you all go to the park to have a fight. Is that right?
Yes.
And that's why you're there as well, correct? Did you have any weapon?
No.
Did you have any weapon?
Nope.
But Shelley had a weapon. When for the first time did you see Shelley's weapon?
When she pulled it out.
And where was she when she pulled it out?
Right next to Kelly, fighting her.
And what did she pull out?
Switchblade, I think.
Switchblade. And what did she do with the switchblade?
Stab Kelly.
How many times?
5, I think. That's what I heard.
Well, you were standing right there.
I was at distance, but I was there, yeah.
And after she stabbed Kelly 5 times, what did you do?
Left.
Who did you leave with?
Nobody. By myself.
Who called an ambulance for her?
I don't know.
Why didn't you?
Because I didn't want to go to jail.
Go to jail for what?
Because they would have thought that was part of it.
Oh, you think so?
I thought so.
You think so?
I was scared. I was only 13. I didn't know that was going to happen.
Well, who called an ambulance for her?
I have no idea. I left.
But you did know one thing, madam. You knew that Shelley had committed a vicious assault, and as far as you could tell that day, she might have been dead, right?
Mm-hmm.
When did Shelley come to your house?
Not for...
No. When did Shelley... Look at me. When did Shelley come to your house?
Like a month after.
weeks after.
Are you telling me that you didn't speak to Shelley
No, I
between
spoke to
June 3rd?
I spoke to her.
And where was she when you spoke to her?
Over the phone, not in...
Where was she when you spoke to her?
She didn't tell me.
I don't believe you. I don't believe you. If your mother believes you, then she wants to believe you. I don't believe you. Because a 13-year-old girl says, where are you? The police are looking for you.
She said I don't want the police to know, and so I'm not going to tell you.
Oh, yeah, I don't believe that for a second. Did you call the police and tell the police that you had been receiving phone calls from her?
No, ma'am.
Why not?
I don't know.
Why not?
I don't know.
And when did she come to your house?
Months afterwards. You can ask my mother.
You mean, I'm not asking your mother, I'm asking you. Does your mother work?
Yes, ma'am.
She's out of the house Monday through Friday?
Yes, ma'am.
She doesn't know what's going on in the house when she's not there. She doesn't know what's going on in the house when she's not there, and she doesn't know whether Shelley came to the house, you gave her food, you gave her money, you gave her clothes. She doesn't know any of that. I know it.
Well, I didn't.
Oh, yes, you did. Oh, yes, you did. The same way you walked away, leaving her to bleed to death, is the same way that you helped your friend Shelley, because you went there to fight at your friend Shelley's request. That's why you went there.
I didn't go to fight.
Then you should have stayed home, because according to you, you
ma'am, I
didn't go to
should have.
school because you were sick. Now, when your mother came home, did you tell her what happened?
No, ma'am.
No, because you were supposed to be home, so you lied to her. Again, right?
Yes.
How long did you lie to your mother?
I didn't keep making up lies, but until...
Well, when for the first time did you tell your mother that you had been there and witnessed the stabbing?
When the detective showed up at my house.
That's right. So until then, you kept lying to your mother.
Well, I just didn't tell.
How long were you hospitalized?
For like a week.
Where were you stabbed?
My stomach, both my arms, my back, and my leg.
What kind of a sentence was imposed on Shelley?
She got 2 years. I don't remember what if it was first degree assault.
She's incarcerated for 2 years?
Yeah.
How old is she?
I think she's a year younger than I am.
How old are you?
17.
She's still incarcerated?
Yeah, she gets out in November.
Did she go to trial?
Yes.
She went to trial. What was her defense? I'm curious.
She said that it was self-defense.
Self-defense. Where was the other knife?
It wasn't.
That's why she was convicted. Now, it is your claim that these two young ladies have been harassing you. And as a matter of fact, you have protective orders. I want you to tell me when the first incident of harassment started.
Well, I can't remember which one was first or whatever, but there was like a whole bunch of stuff off MySpace and just writing back and forth. And Mary was just like talking about she's too old to fight me or whatever, but she has other people that will. And
when did she say that to you?
She wrote it on MySpace.
Can I see it, please?
I'm going to give you the police report also that verified it, because when we went to print that out, we were out of printer ink, and she took it off immediately after, but we have 3 of the different things here.
How old are you?
20.
Is there something wrong with you? Why did you even communicate at all with her?
The reason that I communicated with her was on MySpace, like she had said was true. But through a friend of ours, there's a picture of my daughter on his MySpace, or there was. I couldn't print it out because he deleted the picture, but she said that my baby was ugly.
So what?
And you can't delete male messages off MySpace to show others.
You just told me that you communicated with her.
On a phone call, but I didn't communicate on a MySpace message.
Well, what did you say to her?
I was calling her a whole bunch of names and told her that she should have kept mine and my kid's name out of her mouth. And I did say that she's lucky that I was too old to beat her up. But I never said that I had friends that could beat her up or anything like that.
Actually, it says it right here that...
Can I see it, please?
Yeah.
She called the house the same evening. She emailed, and then later that night, Kelly and I both answered the phone.
You called again between 8:30 and 9 p.m.
That's the only time I called her.
Shelley didn't kill you when she stabbed you, but I will?
No, that is not me writing that. Why would I try to kill a little kid? I don't want to go to jail. I have a daughter. This is...
Yeah, I don't think that you wanted to do that at all. I just think that you said it just to be stupid.
Yeah, but
I don't think that you meant it at all. I think that you said it to be stupid.
I mean, yes,
now, when did you know that your sister was having trouble with her?
I knew when the detective came to our house and spoke that she had been at the stabbing. And I figured that they had problems because her and Shelley didn't get along. So I figured my sister's Shelley's friend, then obviously she's not going to get along with her either.
Your sister has a bad attitude. Did you know that?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Not a bad, very bad attitude.
I'm very
Does your mother know that your sister has a very bad attitude? I can tell from looking at her face. If I were her mother and had a face like that, look at me when I talk to her, it would be the last time I would look at that face, madam. It would be the last time I would look at that face. How old are you?
15.
Do you want to be a miserable, ugly person your whole life?
No, man.
Well, you're starting out that way. You really are. You can either be successful and productive, or you could be a loser. Right now, you're on the road to loser. Big time. Does your mother tell you that?
No.
Well, I'm telling you, big time. You've got a miserable attitude. I can tell that from 20 feet away. I didn't even have to live with you as long as your sister did. You think that people are going to be attracted to you because you're tough?
No, ma'am.
They won't. They'll think you're an idiot. Can't you do anything with her?
I've tried. As you can see, it's complete opposite, and trust me, we've tried. It's just, if you don't have the attitude to change, nobody around you can make you change, and she doesn't want to change, so.
Do you discuss that with your mother?
Yes, me and my mom do talk about it.
You have my sympathy.
Thank you.
You really have my sympathy. I don't know what you're going to do with her. You know, when they're little, you can, deal with them better. You'd put them in a corner and you'd say, time out. And here's a good crack in your head, too. But she's too big for that.
Just gotta wait for her to move out. 18's coming.
What's with you, my dear? Why are you so angry? Why are you so angry? Why are you so hell-bent on destroying your life?
I'm not trying to destroy my life.
But you are.
I'm not.
You are. Your mother can't wait for you to turn 18 so that you get out of the house because you're making the rest of the family miserable. Is anybody at home abusing you?
No, ma'am.
Well, then I don't understand why you're so miserable.
Well,
you were involved in a very serious crime. You did absolutely the wrong thing. If a 13-year-old person, who's not an infant, sees a dog get hit in the street, they call an ambulance. They don't walk home and just, relax. Get stabbed 5 times by somebody who had a weapon, and you were able just to go home and sleep and get it. It's not important.
I didn't know what I was supposed to do.
You were supposed to get help for somebody that needed it because you were involved. You want to know why you were involved? Because if you and these other people hadn't gone with Shelley to the park, Shelley wouldn't have gone to the park. Shelley took strength in the fact that her friends were with her. You're all accomplices. Yes, you were. But for the fact that you all gave Shelley support, Shelley would not have had the courage to go to the park alone and stab her with a knife. She may have done it on another day, but she wouldn't have done it on your watch. That's why you're responsible. And then from a humane perspective, how could you just walk away and leave someone to bleed to death on the street? Now, I want you to continue to tell me what problems you've had with Miss Attitude over here.
It was like when I was going to Brenda's house.
Tell me what happened.
And I was going to my street so I could catch the bus back up to my house to get my clothes to go over to hers. And it was like in an intersection, and we were stopped at the light, and then Heather and like the people that were with me at the park or whatever were with her, and she walked in front of the bus and she was just calling me names and stuff, and I was getting off at that stop, so I pulled the thing and then I got off the bus or whatever. They all turned around, and then I just went in the corner store, and when I came back out, they weren't out there.
Why do you have any contact with her at all?
I just flipped her off.
Why?
Because she didn't like me, so I didn't want to like her.
Just a second. Between the time she was stabbed and last November, why did you have any negative contact with her at all?
I shouldn't have, but that was the only time that I said anything to her.
Why did you say anything to her?
I don't know. I was being stupid. But I have papers here that she wrote me. She wrote me first, before that day. She wrote me.
I'd like to see him.
I wrote her back, and then she wrote me again.
Yeah, she's saying to you, and she uses terrible, terrible language. You have to learn how to, use your words. Find some other language other than 4-letter words to express yourself. Stay in school. But she's really saying to you here, why don't you leave me alone? Don't you have anything else to do? Now, what you do say is, I am loyal to my friends, so I'm going to stick by Shelley 100%. I don't like having beef with people, but Shelley was my best friend, and I honestly don't even know why the whole fight started, but you should not have gotten stabbed. But like I said, she is my homie, so I'm going to stick by her. What you're telling me, Mary, is that your conversation with her was stupid?
Pretty much. I shouldn't have called her, and I do apologize for that. I realize that she is the victim in the stabbing, and if I had any control over my sister, she wouldn't have been there.
Good girl. Sit down. Want to stand up, Miss Wilson? Next to your daughter? I'm going to tell you a story. Many years ago, when I was a family court judge, there was a young girl who was going to Fashion Institute of Technology, and she was on the subway by herself. And a group of girls, 5 of them, had nothing to do that day. So they got on the subway, and this girl, whose name was Marisol, was wearing big hoop earrings. This case was probably 20 years ago, but I remember it so distinctly because one of the girls said to her friends, "Run those earrings," which means steal the earrings. And they circled her, and one girl grabbed her by the hair, another girl ripped off the earrings, and the third girl stabbed her to death. She was 17 years old. And they got the stabber, and the stabber was tried for murder and convicted. You got that look on your face that I'd like to wipe off. Don't put it back on your face. I was sitting in family court at the time, and it was my job to try the other girls who were juveniles, and I convicted them all of murder, even the ones that didn't stab her, because but for the fact that they acted as a pack and they surrounded her and they were there giving her support, that girl would not have had the guts to take her on one-on-one. And I tell you now that that conviction was held up on appeal. So you are very lucky that nobody arrested you. You're very lucky that they didn't charge you, because if you were in my ballpark, you would be spending some time with Shelley. Meanwhile, it's going to cost you and your family $5,000, because that's what she's suing for, and that's what she's going to get. And I certainly hope that your mother gets you some help. Otherwise, you're going to be a miserable person your whole life. That's all. Thank you.
Stacy Crawford says her boyfriend's friend, Scott Endicott, threw gasoline onto a campfire, causing her to be severely burned. Scott claims Stacy is partly to blame.
Ms. Crawford, it's your claim that Mr. Endicott is responsible for you being severely burned. You want him to pay your medical bills that weren't covered by insurance, and in addition, a sum for the pain and suffering that you endured as a result of these burns. Mr. Endicott says that you were burned as a result of your own drunkenness. So tell me when this happened.
August 17th, night of August 17th, was laying next to, we were camping.
Who was camping?
Me, Mr. Endicott, my boyfriend Jeff, his 13-year-old daughter. I mean, there was a group of us and other children.
When had you gone camping?
I had gone August 17th, Friday.
When had you gone camping, Mr. Endicott?
I got there the same day.
And this was a pre-planned weekend, overnight, is that right?
Yeah.
Did you know each other before?
I had been introduced to him for my boyfriend one other time.
You two were friends?
Yes.
Okay. So tell me what happened.
The day was great. We were four-wheeling in the sand. The night started rolling on. Everybody was settling down by the campfire. There was some drinking, and I was only there for the night, so I didn't have a camping chair, so I laid down near the fire to feel the warmth and everything, and then all of a sudden, I went up in flames.
Did you witness what happened?
Yes.
Stand up, sir. Tell me your name.
Jeffrey Ablin.
Tell me what you observed on the 17th. Miss Crawford had fallen asleep around the fire.
Yes, we were.
Were you on a blanket?
No, I wasn't sleeping. I was just laying there.
We were just, everybody was around the fire.
How many people were around the fire?
I would say approximately there had to have been a good 10 people.
Did you know most of them?
Yes, I knew all of them.
Who had made the fire?
All of us together, all the guys went out to the, out onto the beach, and we towed back driftwood.
When you say all the guys, how many guys were there?
I would say there's probably a good 5 or 6 of us that went out there and gathered wood.
Including Mr. Endicott?
Yes.
Yeah. And how long had the fire been burning?
I would say it'd probably been going about 6 hours at least.
So it was late at night?
Yes, it was approximately about midnight, I would say, roughly.
Yeah, but the driftwood that we put on there that the neglect can tell you is that it was
You're
wet.
going to have your turn. Go ahead, sir.
So we were all just hanging out by the fire talking, and I didn't actually see Scott throw the gas on the fire, but what I seen was a huge flame and her burst into flames.
After you burst into flames, what happened?
I started rolling. Jeff and a couple of the other guys all kind of jumped on me, pounced out the fire, threw sand on me. They all picked me up at that point, took me to the hospital there in town, the ER. At that point, I was in shock. My skin was sloughing off my legs. I have pictures of that. I don't recall a whole lot after the next 24 hours.
When did you speak to Mr. Endicott?
I actually didn't speak to Mr. Endicott until Wednesday. He came over to my parents' house.
And what day of the week was this?
That's Friday night.
So Wednesday you spoke to Mr. Endicott, and did he call you?
No.
You called him?
No. We were going through Jeff at that point.
You spoke to him?
Yes.
So tell me about the conversation. Did you call him or did he call you?
I seen him face to face.
And tell me about the conversation.
I had asked him if he was going to go to the hospital and see her because she was burned.
And
he told me he didn't think it was his fault, so that he wasn't going to go there. He was going home.
Did he offer an explanation to you?
Yes, he was throwing fire. He was throwing fuel on the fire to get it going better. And
Is that what he
did
said
not
to you?
see her. Yes.
Is that what you said to him?
Yes.
Now you can sit down. Now I'll see the pictures. You're a nurse?
CNA, going to school to be a nurse.
So you were not able to work because of the open wounds?
Correct.
Is that right?
I work in a hospital.
Okay. All right, Mr. Endicott, you certainly have seen these photographs?
Nope.
Okay, sir. Let's start on the 17th.
When I got there, there's a small campfire, and everybody was doing their drinking and stuff. And I was going back and forth from that campground to another campground.
When were you going back and forth between the two campgrounds?
Just through the course of the night. Because I got there around 7 o'clock, and from 7 to about 10, I was going back and forth. Because I had family in another campground. And around 10 o'clock, I came back out there, and that's when everybody decided I decided to stay out there.
At 10 o'clock?
Yeah, around 10 o'clock, I believe. And me and Jeff and some other people went out and got some more firewood, and we brought it back, and the firewood was damp, and so we had it all stacked up on there. And through the course of the evening, the fire hadn't really started on the wood, and another friend asked if we could pour some gas on the fire. And when I went and got the can, another friend was going to pour it out of a cup, and I just told him I'd pour it out of a can. And
So
by the
somebody
time,
was going to pour it out of a cup.
yeah,
What would be the reason for pouring it out of a cup instead of using a can?
I don't know. It just,
Well, try to think.
that's just the way he wanted to do it.
Would it...
No difference.
Don't pick your hand up. I don't need anything from you yet.
I mean, there wouldn't be any difference from pouring it out of a cup out of a can. I mean, the results probably would have been the same.
No, what I'm saying to you is if you're using a cup, I'm not a campfire girl myself. You may not have known that. But those people who know me know I believe in sleeping in a bed with running plumbing. So, but it would just seem to me that if you used a cup to pour liquid as, you could sort of gauge how much you were actually using as opposed to using a can where you just go.
Out of the can, it came out of a can out of a hole that big.
I understand that, sir.
So,
So you decided to use the can.
yeah.
Okay, and then what did you do?
When I was walking over to pour the gas on the fire, everybody that was awakened by the fire all moved away from the fire. So I thought it was safe to pour gas on the fire. She was on the other side of the fire, and the wood was stacked up pretty high, wearing dark clothes, and nobody could see her.
No, not nobody.
I couldn't see her.
So whose fault is that?
I think it's both of our fault because...
Don't tell me why you think it's both of your faults. Let us say that I believe you when you say she was, because I read your answer, that she was probably sleeping because she had had too much to drink. Let's say I buy that 100%. Explain to me why that's not your fault.
It is my fault for her getting burnt, but I don't feel financially responsible for it.
Well, why, if it's your fault for her getting burned, why aren't you financially responsible, Mr. Endicott?
Why isn't she responsible for her own actions?
What are her actions that caused her to get burnt?
Being inebriated.
Yeah. So were you. So was everybody else that was there. They had been drinking all night. You had been drinking in between two campgrounds. You were all drinking. How does the fact that she was drinking, sleeping, make it her fault? Don't you get that? It's your fault. Let me give you an example, Mr. Endicott, of the lunacy of your position. Okay, sir? Pay careful attention to me. Let's say you're drunk and you get behind the wheel of a car, just like you pick up a can of gas while you're drunk, and you're driving along and you hit somebody who is sitting in their car in a no parking zone. They're sitting in their car, not moving. You're drunk in your car. You plow right into them. You think it's an argument in your defense that they're sitting in a no parking zone?
Not in that situation, but what if she...
Of course not.
What if she
Of
went
course
over-
not, because the fact, sir, that they are sitting in a no parking zone has absolutely nothing to do with the fact that you recklessly got behind the wheel of a car while drunk and drove that car into the parked car. Similarly, Mr. Endicott, the fact that you did not secure the area by walking around the perimeter of the fire to make sure nobody was there before you poured gasoline on it is your fault. Not her fault that the wood was piled too high so that you couldn't see over it, or it was dark, or that she chose to wear dark clothing when she was sleeping at the fire so you couldn't see her. If you had walked around the fire, you would have seen her, right?
Yeah,
You didn't. Whose fault is that?
I guess it's mine.
Ah, now we're getting closer to it. If it's your fault that she got burned because you were negligent and careless, you're responsible. Do you understand that? Just say yes, ma'am. Perfect. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $5,000. That's all. Step out.
Eugene Tonda says the mother of his children, Amanda Petrie, owes for a loan to move out of his house. Amanda claims Eugene put her out of the home when she was 8.5 months pregnant.
Mr. Tonda, you and Miss Petrie have 2 children together. You've never been married. Is that right?
Yes, Your Honor.
How old are your children?
4 and 2.5, almost 3.
And in what state did you live?
Minnesota.
Where do you live now?
I live in Texas. That's where I'm from.
Where do you live now?
I still reside in Minnesota.
Your complaint, Mr. Tonda, alleges a loan to the defendant, which she was paying for several years. And then when she left Minnesota with your children and moved to Texas, she stopped paying the loan. You want her to continue paying the loan.
Correct.
Ms. Petrie says that she was coerced into signing a paper or agreeing to repay this money. It was never intended to be a loan. And now that she's in Texas, she's not paying you another dime. Let's see. When did you make this loan and what was it for, sir?
I originally took out the loan, Your Honor, in March of 2004. It was to get Amanda into an apartment of her own. She was living with me, but we were not together at the time. She had just moved back from North Carolina, where she had relocated to go live with her sister for a while.
And she took your child with her?
Yeah, at the time we had just our son, Gino.
Were you happy about her going to live with her sister?
No, not at all.
Actually, his exact words were, "I don't care." My sister was standing next to me. He wasn't involved. He wasn't paying child support.
Well, he must have been together with him at some point if your sister was in the room when he said, "I don't care."
I went and told him, and she came with me.
You told him what?
That I was thinking of moving to North Carolina, that he and I didn't get along. He was verbally and emotionally abusive, and it wasn't good for me, and it wasn't good for our son. He wasn't paying support at the time, and that I needed a fresh start.
And he said?
And he said, "I don't care, whatever."
Actually, Your Honor, that's not true at all. I was paying support to her directly. And the manner of which she broke this news to me was we were actually at a bowling alley, and she had got furiated about some silly thing and then said, "Well, I'm moving to North Carolina," and just picked up and walked away. And it wasn't like a calm, cool, collected.
Was it in a bowling alley that you told him this?
I did tell him.
Fine. Got it. Okay. Then you went to North Carolina. That didn't work out.
And he wasn't paying child support.
Moved back to Minnesota at what point?
I moved back at the end of November of '03. He convinced me to move back. We had found out I was pregnant with our daughter now, and I wasn't going to move back, and he convinced me to move back, that he had made mistakes and he was going to be more involved. And then a week after we moved back, he had decided that living in his house was too much of a family union, and we just argued all the time. And then in March of '04, 3 weeks before I was due with our daughter, he kicked us out. He didn't take the loan out to help me. I wasn't searching for an apartment. I had no job at the time. I was due in 3 weeks. He took it out, didn't discuss it with me, had no idea, and said, "You need to get out of my house." I let him know I don't have a job. I'm due in 3 weeks. Where do you expect us to go? And he said, well, I took out a loan. So I didn't know about it. I've never signed anything.
Okay, let's go.
That, again, not the case. We had discussed it before. We were not together at the time. Yeah, she was living with me. I, at the time, had still originally purchased this house with a friend. So there was a couple roommates there, and it wasn't an environment for, 2 kids. There was, 2 other, mid-20-year-old men living there. So I let her live there as an accommodation until we could find something.
So you were living with him in a house with other adult males?
They lived in the basement, yes.
With other adult males?
Yes.
Did you share a room with him?
Yes.
In that house?
Yes.
Okay, so you're sharing a bedroom?
Correct.
So far, you're losing my sympathy, Mr. Tunda.
Well, it was an unfortunate circumstance. I mean, we had to do what we had to do, and that's why, I didn't kick her out. I brought up a proposition that I felt would be beneficial for both of us to get her into a room before our daughter was born.
Why? Who was going to be there to help her?
Who was going to be there to help her?
That's my
well,
question.
We had gotten a place, 15, 20 minutes away from my house, so...
That's 15 or 20 minutes. She's expecting a baby. She's living in Minnesota. I assume she has no family in Minnesota.
She did not have any family, per se, but my family had taken her on as like her own.
She had no family in Minnesota. She's due in 3 weeks. Your child.
Yep.
So it would seem to me you'd want to keep her around at least until she's back up on her feet after the baby is born. This doesn't seem like the appropriate time to find her a new space, Mr. Tunda.
Well, I felt it was more appropriate before the baby was born than after.
You're wrong. It was selfish and babyish.
I disagree.
I don't give a rat's tutu whether you agree or disagree, sir. You want me to take a poll as to whether or not most mature adult males would say it was appropriate to find an 8.5-month pregnant woman who's got a 1-year-old a place of her own in a town where she has no family, sir? You want me to take a poll?
No.
You don't want to. You don't want a poll there, sir. Believe me.
I don't think it's necessary.
Believe me, you don't want a poll. It was a selfish thing to do. So you took out a loan. You got her an apartment.
Correct.
Right? Well, you didn't expect her to pay the rent, did you?
Well, not
How was she
right
supposed
away.
to pay the rent? 8.5 months pregnant.
Well, not right away, but that's why we took out the loan when she started working.
Let's see when.
When she started working.
Well, when did you think she was going to start working?
I would assume roughly 6 to 8 weeks after her daughter was born.
Right. And just a second. And what was she supposed to do with a 6-week-old baby and a 1-year-old baby? What was she supposed to do with those?
Well, it's not like she was just on her own. I mean, obviously, I was an active parent involved in paying support, so she had the support that I was paying her.
Just a second. That's not being an active parent.
I don't understand what's not being an active parent.
Giving money is not an active parent.
No, that was to help the situation. It wasn't. I'm not defining being an active parent by taking out a loan.
Well, what did you do when she got this apartment by herself? Did you go over there every day?
I was over there quite a bit, actually.
That's not my question. Did you go over there every day to take care of your son?
Well, I wouldn't say every day.
Well, what did you expect her to do with the baby and a new baby when you weren't there? What did you expect her to do?
Your Honor, it's a circumstance where, unfortunately, we weren't together and it didn't work out. But I felt I did what I could to help her out, and, my family...
So then what are you doing here? My question to you, sir, is what are you doing here? You took out a loan to get her an apartment so she could be on her own after impregnating her twice.
Well, I'm here to, a loan is the key word. She agreed to pay, and she faithfully paid on it for 2 years on the loan. And then once I filed for custody of my children, because she picked up and moved to Texas with 5 days notice.
Well, that was a bad thing for her to do, to pick up and move to Texas if you were a good and involved father.
Because she has only her best interest in mind, not the interest of the children, hence the reason that I filed for custody.
And you only have the best interests of the children in mind.
Actually, I do, Your Honor.
Then what are you doing here? How much support were you paying 2 years ago?
When we had just our son born, I was giving her about $400 a month.
$400 a month?
A month.
That's incorrect.
Okay. I was giving her $200 every 2 weeks.
And what do you give her now?
$800.
Every 2 weeks?
No, $800 a month is what the court has ordered me to pay.
Well, that's the same thing as you were paying her before, for one child. Now you're giving her the same amount for 2 children.
Right, which is double. Normally it's only a 10% increase from the first one to the second one. So
that doesn't sound like, sir, the best interest of the children percentage. It's usually a 10% increase?
Yeah, 25% of your income for the first one, and then in Minnesota it's 35%.
No,
so,
that's not, sir, you don't get confused.
Well, I know it's not 10%.
Those are the minimum federal child support guidelines, which have been adapted in every jurisdiction. That's the minimum. Do you work?
Yes, ma'am, and I'm in school.
Who takes care of the children?
They go to a Child Builders Christian School. It's a private preschool.
And who pays for it?
I do.
How much do you pay for daycare?
$650 a month.
Okay, so she pays $650 a month. And how much of the daycare do you pay, Mr. Tanda?
I believe a portion of the total support goes to that. I do nothing specific.
That's not what I asked you.
Well, I don't pay anything directly to the...
Right. So if we take away what you pay, which is $800 a month, from the $650 that she pays just to keep the children so that she can work, we have a grand total of $150 a month. I'm speaking. I'm speaking. We're going to divide that by 2 equals $75 a month for each child. And that we're going to divide by 30 equals $2.50 a day is what you pay for each of your children in child support.
May I speak now, Your Honor?
Sure.
Okay. I don't know her exact financial situation, but obviously I want to be involved to the point where I'm filing for custody of my children. And the fact is that she must not be hurting too bad because she's obviously able to afford a lawyer to fly up to Minnesota to try to fight from keeping me from having the opportunity to have my kids reside in the state where I live.
Mr. Tanda, I want you to listen very carefully, sir. I have tremendous sympathy for non-custodial parents who don't see their children. And I have usually very little sympathy for custodial parents who pick up and move away and make it difficult for the non-custodial parents to see their children. Usually. But let me explain to you, sir, that in this case, Miss Petrie followed you from Wisconsin to Minnesota, where you live. 2 times, right?
Correct.
And when she came back the second time, she had a baby, and it didn't work out. You say, I fulfilled my obligation because I wanted to be close to my children, paid the rent so it would be comfortable and easy for her, and gave her $200. But out of that $200, I expected her to work with 2 children, and to pay for daycare, and to pay me back my loan. Do you see why sympathy is waning for you, Mr. Tanda?
Your Honor, the state was picking up the majority of the tab of the daycare when they were in Minnesota, so the situation that we had in Minnesota was perfectly fine.
No, it wasn't working fine. You put her out and put her in her own apartment. And what you're supposed to say, Mr. Tanda, is, I'm sorry for bringing you to court. It was a stupid thing for me to do because I have found a very unsympathetic judge who doesn't find that this was a loan. The court finds that it was a very comfortable way for you to stay in your house with your 2 bachelor boyfriends and get rid of your responsibility that you didn't have to deal with on a regular basis, which clearly, according to your own testimony, you didn't. You weren't at her apartment every day after the baby was born, taking care of your son, taking care of your daughter.
Well, maybe 6 out of 7 days. I don't,
Yeah, baloney. Coming over and spending an hour is not being there to do the job of a parent, sir.
Than an hour.
And I'm not saying that she was smart to have a second child with you.
No.
1 mistake I can understand. 2 is dumb.
I agree.
But it takes 2 to tango.
It does.
What I'm telling you is, right now, the mother of your 2 children seems to be taking care of her financial responsibilities relatively comfortably. She's got a job, she pays for daycare, and she's doing that with marginal help from you.
Well, unfortunately, with her picking up, moving 1,300 miles away,
where did you expect her? Listen to me, sir. Where did you expect her to move to? You expected her to move to a jurisdiction that was closer to you, where she had nobody?
No, she picked up and gave me 5 days' notice when I'm supposed to have my kids for a Christmas vacation, and she calls and tells me they're not coming and she's moving to Texas.
So that's where her family is, though. That's where her family is, right?
Her mother, who she said nothing but bad things about the whole time.
Her mother and who else?
Her brother lives a few hours away.
Got a mother and a brother.
Yep.
What do you do for a living?
I work for a cell phone company.
Which cell phone company?
Verizon Wireless.
Good. They have offices in Texas. Why don't you move there?
It's
Listen to me. That's where your family is, sir. Your 2 children are in Texas. Her support system is in Texas.
She had a tremendous support system from my family, too.
Now, her family's not your family.
Right.
You want to be near your children?
Your Honor, can I talk
Go to
for a minute?
Texas.
When our son was being delivered and her mother had called and she was holding our son, this is how much she adores her mother. She said, oh, that's the grandma
No, I
of
did
the phone.
not.
And we have it on videotape, Your Honor. So
Mr.
for her to say that that's an excuse to move down there and have her support system, she doesn't even barely get along with her mom.
Mr. Tanda, you get along with your mother?
I do get along with my mom.
Ever not get along with your mother, sir?
I never
Did you ever not get along with your mother?
I never badmouth my mom.
Did you ever not get along? That's not what I asked you. Did you ever not get along with your mother?
As much as everybody probably hasn't.
Okay. And I'm going to tell you something. There are a lot of curse words that go on in a labor and delivery room. A lot. I guarantee you that she called you a couple of names, too. If she didn't, she probably meant to. Let me explain something to you, sir. You don't have a profession where you're licensed to practice only in the state of Minnesota. And if I were you and if I wanted to see my children, I would call up my boss and I would say, please find me a place in Texas so you could be a lot closer to your children if that's in your mind. But based upon what I hear, you wanted her out of the house. You took out a loan. I see no reasonable expectation for the foreseeable future of you being paid back any money from somebody who now has 2 babies, no job, living in a place where she has no family. I don't see any reasonable expectation of you being paid back, sir. And that's part of a contract, if it's a loan. You did the right thing if you weren't getting along and helping her get set up. Don't be a fool now, Mr. Tanda. Your case is dismissed. That's all.
Timothy Glenn says ex-landlord Elena Chavez owes for an illegal eviction. Elena is countersuing for a security deposit, the return of property, and sexual battery.
Is this your son?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you ask the young man to wait outside until we're ready for him?
Sure.
If ever.
Come on. This way.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Mr. Glenn, according to your complaint, you rented a room from Mrs. Chavez with your son.
Yes, ma'am.
And you claim that she unlawfully locked you out of the apartment.
Yes, ma'am.
You suffered damages as a result of this unlawful eviction. You want returned your rent, a deposit, your moving expenses, and punitive damages.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Chavez says that she never locked you out of the apartment. You left, and she is counterclaiming for a variety of things: stolen property, damage to the apartment, and sexual battery, which she will explain to me. When did you rent this room, and why were you looking for a room?
My son and I were living in an environment that I felt was unacceptable for him. My work hours are late, and I wanted somewhere where I could consider him home at 12 years old. So I responded to an ad for a room for rent in a beautiful home, and I quote to you, cable, DSL, nice neighborhood. And I met Elena with my wife, and I told her that...
Were you and your wife living together?
No, at the time, no. I went through 17 months of self-employment, and financial problems prerequisited her to move in with her parents, and myself and my 12-year-old son to move into a smaller residence. We had a condo.
Your son is not the product of this marriage?
No, ma'am.
So you were separated from your wife at the time?
Yes. And we left and had a good conversation with Elena the first time I met her. And,
when was that?
That was, I think, late May of this year.
When did you move into the room?
June...
About June 28th.
June 28th or something to that effect. She may have documents too.
Is that right? When did he move in?
He moved in July 2nd.
Do you have a lease?
Yes, ma'am.
I can see it, please.
This is for the first room, and this is for the second room.
How many rooms were there?
There were 2. The first one, the 28th, the second, I mean, it's 4 days difference. When I had the conversation with Lynn and my wife concerning the potential rental, and my wife and I spoke about it, we thought it was a good idea, but I didn't have the capital. She wanted a month's rent and a month's rent for deposit. So I approached her again some days later and asked her if she'd be willing to rent to me with just the rent up front, and then we can make payments or something for the deposit. She hesitated not 1 second, absolutely. So my son and I, we moved into a small room that was very small, but it accommodated us. Nice house. We went into the other room after the fact. It was a much larger master bedroom. So.
Okay, how much was the rent on the second room?
$800 per month.
Is that right?
Yes, it is.
So you were in the second room, $800 per month, on or about the beginning of July, and you paid her how much?
7. She probably has receipts for that effect also. 7 something and.
Mr. Glenn, you knew you were coming to court today.
Right. My stuff is all over the place in storage and everywhere because of this.
Mr. Glenn, that's not my problem. That's your problem. You know
I
you're
understand.
coming to court. If your stuff is all over and you're talking about a couple of months ago, you get it. You get it together so that you have it.
I apologize.
Ms. Chavez, how much did he pay you when he moved in the beginning of July?
When he moved in the beginning of July, he gave me $600. The last payment he gave me to complete that was $200, supposedly $200, but he only gave me $150 of it, lacking $50.
Oh, $750 you received from him the entire month of July, and what was owing on that room was $800 for the rent. Is that right? The security deposit, how much did you receive for security deposit?
He never paid that, Your Honor.
Is that correct, sir?
Not during the month of July.
That's what I'm asking you. So the month of July, you never paid for the security deposit,
No, ma'am.
and you were $50 short on rent.
Yes,
Now
ma'am.
let's get
So-
to August.
Okay.
How much did he pay you for the entire month of August?
$770.
So for the entire month of August, you were $30 short in rent, correct, sir?
Mm-hmm.
And how much did he pay towards the security deposit?
Nothing, Your Honor.
Is that correct, sir?
No, ma'am. And
How much did you pay towards the security deposit in August?
in the month of August, I paid $80 to her on the 26th, and I think I paid her $172 or something down to my penny in the 1st of August. So it's about $250 and 20 cents, roughly. For deposit.
And an additional $770
For rent.
For rent.
Right.
Yes.
That's not true. I give them receipts when they're giving me money, and
She gives me receipts like this sometimes also.
Just a second. In any event, there came a time, according to you, take your hands off your hips.
Yes, ma'am.
Came a time, according to you, in the month of August, that you told her you were leaving.
Yes, ma'am.
When did you tell her you were leaving?
August the 26th, I was paid by a side job that I did. I'm an auto mechanic, fixed her car a few times, and said, "Hey, Elena, let me give you $80, towards my rent, because I'm going to be about $80 short." She took the cash money and she put it in her pocket, and she said, "Tim, I can't put that towards the rent. That's got to go towards the deposit." And I said, "Okay, understandably so, but if you do that right now, I won't have the rent complete on the 1st. And she goes, "It's not my problem. I don't have nothing to do with it." So I told her, "I'm going to move out on the 1st. I'll make other arrangements, okay?" That was Saturday the 26th, I believe it was.
Okay.
Sunday, we go to court, my son and court. We went to church, and when we walked out of church, I turned my cell phone on, and I received a voicemail from Elena, and I can't quote you exactly, but the gist of the thing was I've been crunching some numbers, and you owe me $290 right now, she told me, and until I get that money, you will not get back in the house, and you will have to take me to court for your property. This is the day before school starts, and I have a 12-year-old boy, all right? So I called her based on that voicemail, and I said, "Do you want to call the sheriff, or do you want me to call the sheriff? Because I've paid you all the rent for this month." I gave her $80.
Well, you hadn't. You were still shy. But she is still required
Yes,
to go to
ma'am.
court to evict you.
So she says, "Okay, you know what? You call them if you want to." So I call the sheriff. 40 minutes later, they show up. I take my cell phone out. I play the voicemail for the sheriff. She said in the voicemail, "Until you pay me the money, you're not getting your stuff." The sheriff said, "I can't touch this. But if you want to go knock on the door, I'll stand there to effect the peace." Okay? So I approach the door and I knock very lightly. Okay, there are people there, and Justin's mom was there also. He's one of the witnesses for her. And no one answers the door. The sheriff then decides to knock on the door herself, somewhat louder. Okay, we know we've gotten attention at this point. No one will answer the door. Then the sheriff decides to take the flashlight. Knock, knock, knock. She's getting angry, the female deputy, all right? We see Elena through the door window go upstairs quickly, and she won't answer. Sometime later, Elena comes to the window and says, "Who is it that's knocking at my door?" And she said, "This is the sheriff's department, ma'am. I need to speak to you." And she said, "Go ahead." And she said, "I need you to come to the door." And she goes, "I'm not going to open the door for him." And she said, "Why not?" And she said, "Because he owes me money." And the sheriff's department said, "Do you have an eviction papers? Do you have anything like that you can show me?" And she goes, "No, but he owes me money and I'm not letting him in until he pays." Justin's mom comes to the door to come outside of the house, and she walks out. When she does, the deputy puts her foot in the front door. And Elena tried to close the door on the deputy. And the deputy said, "I'm not having that." And she bowled her way into the house. I think you'll get a chance.
Do you think I need help?
I'm sorry. You have to understand what I've been through. I apologize.
Go ahead.
This is unbelievable. The deputy then forced their way into the house, at which point Elena became completely irate. Just unbelievable. She almost sat on the ground going nuts. She told them I stole money from her. She told them that I broke her gate and that I exposed myself to her and her 2 children, all right? At this point, I thought about it for a moment and I said, I don't even want back in this house because I can't leave my boy here. Who knows what she's going to do?
Do you have a police report?
They did not make a police report.
The answer is you don't.
No, they didn't. Here's the case number if you want to call them and verify.
Do you have a police report? I'd like to see it, please.
Okay.
You see what they both have.
So the watch commander looked at me and he goes, "Do you want to be here?" And I said, "No, but I want my stuff." And he goes, "Well, go get your stuff." So I went upstairs and started to get my stuff. And the whole time I've got my cell phone on, my wife is listening to it on speakerphone the whole time. And the watch commander said, "Can you prove this to me, what you just said?" And she goes, "Yes, I can." She goes, "Justin, Alex," and that's these 2 guys here. And they come downstairs with their hands in their pockets looking at the ground. And he goes, "This woman says that he exposed himself to her and her kids. Can you testify to that?" And Justin and Alex both looked at him and went, "Nope." And he said, "Ma'am, I don't want to hear anything else from you. I want you to sit down and let him get his stuff." And I left.
And did you get your stuff?
I got all of it, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And as I left, I gave Justin in the presence of Kareem, everything that belonged to Elena, the wireless modem, the stereo pieces, the leather jacket I still owed money on, even some chairs that belonged to another
What
renter.
leather jacket that you stole?
A leather jacket I was buying from her. I gave her $10 out of 50, and I had forgotten it in my closet, but as I was moving, I saw it. In his presence, I gave everything that belonged to her to him. And if I still have anything else, it's because I forgot it. I'm not taking nothing from her.
Put your hands down. Put your hands down.
This is just unbelievable.
So I have a few direct questions to ask you, Ms. Chavez. Did you leave a message on Mr. Glenn's cell phone on or about the 26th of August?
No, it was on the 28th, Sunday 28th.
And what did you say in the message on his cell phone?
That he needed to pay at least the $290 and that I wasn't going to open the door. He doesn't have keys because he lost them. And I told him, I'm tired of being your door person. He's broken my gate trying to get over the gate to get into back to get in the house.
Listen, I asked you what you said
that he
on
needed
the
to
voice.
pay that to get in the house and that I wasn't going to open the door if he wanted to come in.
Listen to me. You cannot do that. You cannot lock him out. You cannot prevent him from entering. That's an illegal eviction. You cannot do that.
I wasn't doing
yes, you were. Ms.
Your
Chavez,
Honor.
you absolutely were.
I didn't change the locks.
I don't care whether
I
you
didn't do
changed the locks.
anything.
Listen to me. I read the police.
If he went and got his
I'm
keys, he could have come in.
I'm speaking. You were home when the police came to your door.
Yes, I was.
You refused initially to open the door for the police.
For him. The police had to open
Ms. Chavez! You refused to open the door for the police. You cannot do that. Now, when the police finally were able to gain entrance to your house and speak to you, what was the first thing that you said to them?
I said I would let her in, but not him. And she said, fine, I just want to come in. So she came in, and we started talking. And she asked me what was going on, and I explained it to her.
The first thing that you told the police officer as to why you weren't letting him in your house.
Because he owed money, and I was trying to make an attempt to get him to pay some of it.
Okay. Now we're going to get to your counterclaim. Take your hands out of your pockets.
Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry.
Your counterclaim is that A, he owes you for rent. B, he stole property from your house. You were unclear in your answer as to what property he stole. Do you want to tell me now?
Yes, he took with him 2 towels, a rug, a VCR that I had loaned him. He never returned it. The cable transformers and the modem key that was given to him by Charter. He never returned those things.
Okay. Do you have any of those things?
Everything I thought was hers I gave to Justin, but I'm willing to look in my stores and see if I have the VCR still. I mean, you can buy a brand new 4-head stereo VCR for $20 at Walmart, right?
I got it. I got it. Okay, so that's a lot of baloney. It sounded like a lot of baloney to me because it wasn't even listed in your answer. But what you want the most for is you claim a sexual battery.
Yes.
You want to tell me about that, Ms. Chavez?
Timothy Glenn claims he was illegally evicted by former landlord Elena Chavez. Elena claims Timothy committed lewd acts.
Now, you claim a sexual battery.
Yes.
Go ahead.
The first time it happened was about the 3rd week of July. We were in the kitchen, my roommates, Alex, Justin, and we were proceeding to have lunch. Everybody fixes their own thing. And he came in, and he's very, happy, smiley guy. And he started talking about how easy it is for him to get women. And he proceeded to move his hips left to right with such force that his genitalia made slapping sounds, and he laughed about it.
Oh, my.
And I was like, totally grossed out, and I told him that it wasn't funny because he was laughing. He thinks it's funny.
What else, Ms. Chavez?
And other occasions he's done it before. He's
Ms. Chavez, you know you're full of baloney.
Yeah. I'm not.
Hey, quiet. You want to go to the theater? Go to a movie. It's a court.
He did this, okay?
Listen to me. If he did it, and if you were so offended by it that you wanted to terminate his lease, I'm speaking. You give him 30 days notice in July, which is when you say this happened, and say, I cannot have that kind of behavior in my home. You chose not to do that, so I cannot believe I'm speaking. So close your mouth, put on your listening ears. You chose not to do that. What you chose to do was to allow him to stay there and then illegally lock him out. And when push came to shove, you resurrected this baloney to justify your illegal activity. And what I'm telling you is you cannot do that. And it's a terrible thing to say about somebody especially somebody who is the custodian of a child, especially that. Put your hand down.
I am.
Put your hand down. In
He did it
addition,
in front of them, and not more than once.
Listen to me. You had an option. Your option was, I'm
spoke to
speaking.
him.
It's irrelevant that you spoke to him. If the conduct was so offensive to you, you give him a 30-day notice, which is your right. He is a month-to-month tenant, and he would have to leave. You chose not to do that. You chose, after this happened in July, according to you, I'm speaking, put on your listening ears, you chose, according to you, to accept rent in August, according to you, of $770. And if the conduct so grossed you out, all you had to do in July was say, I want you out. You chose not to do that. So I disbelieve how grossed out you are by any of his conduct. You cannot do what you did. And especially sexual nature with regard to someone who is a custodial parent, very bad. And I also gather from your answer, because he's got a complaint, that you called his son's school. The very day he moved out, you called his son. I'm speaking. You called his son's school to say that he was no longer living at that address. What was the reason for that?
The document states that I have to do that.
Oh, show me. Show me the document that states that you have to call the day after he moves out.
I called 3 days.
Show me. Well, unfortunately, Mr. Glenn, this form that she has indicates that she has to advise the school within 3 days if you've changed your residence.
Okay, well, that's not all she told the principal.
Well, I don't know what she told the principal unless you have the principal here.
No, he wouldn't come.
Well, your allegation is that vindictively, and I guarantee you vindictively she made this call, but she is required to do it, and therefore I cannot in good conscience rule in your favor with regard to that part of your complaint. I think Ms. Chavez acted wrongly. I think she made an excuse for her behavior after the police told her that she couldn't evict you.
I agree.
She couldn't lock you out, and she said, well, you were a threat to her because you sexually battered her. You may have been guilty of poor judgment or poor taste in your storytelling,
Granted.
Mr. Glenn, but there is no evidence whatsoever of sexual battery. Is there? Right. Okay. Mr. Glenn, where did you go after you left her house?
Well, I went to Kareem Pardini's house that night. We didn't know where we were going to go until about 7 p.m.
Okay, so you went to somebody's house, you slept there. Where are you living now?
Right now, we're living next door to my wife in Altaloma. We're on the way back again, and it's great. I mean, everything's coming together.
Well, that's fine. So it worked out reasonably well, but I believe that you have to be compensated, not just because she refused to allow you in, because ultimately what you said was, I'm afraid to leave my son here because she's acting like a nut.
Hey.
So I'm going to take my son and go elsewhere because I can't leave him here, and she acted improperly.
Whether it was
I
a
believe,
motel
I'm
or-
speaking.
I'm sorry.
I believe the fact that she told the police this baloney story about sexual battery is worthy of compensation. And it's worthy of compensation because of who you are, because of the fact that you are a custodial parent. And I don't think that she has the right to use that as an excuse for her illegal behavior. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $2,500. Your counterclaim is dismissed. That's all.
Oh, you're so excused. You may step out.
Charnita Christopher is suing her former friend and child care provider, Vashni Dixon, for her share of money paid to Vashni by the state. Vashni is countersuing for unpaid child care fees.
Miss Christopher, Miss Dixon was a friend of yours.
Yes,
and it is
ma'am.
your claim that at some point she needed some assistance. You needed some assistance with child care, and the state was paying for your child care costs.
Yes,
You engaged Miss Dixon to watch your children with the following arrangement: that she would share those child care responsibilities with your aunt, and then they would split the check. It is your claim that when Miss Dixon got the check, she kept the whole check for herself, and you want half the check so that you can give it to your aunt.
Yes, ma'am.
Miss Dixon says that there was no aunt, that she watched the children, but that you wanted her to split the county check. You would keep half, and she would keep half. And she felt that that was very unfair since she had the responsibility of watching the children. She has a counterclaim, and her counterclaim is nonsense. Her counterclaim wants you to pay the difference between what the county paid for child care and what she thinks she deserves for child care, the overage. because that's what it says in the contract from the state. Well, that's not the contract you had with her, Ms. Dixon.
When she told me, we made the agreement.
Ms. Dixon, that wasn't your agreement that she was going to pay you extra.
She was supposed to pay me $4 an hour. The state was supposed to pay that to tell me that they wouldn't pay all of that. It's her responsibility to pay.
It's not her responsibility.
How is it not her responsibility?
Because I say so. Because that wasn't your contract with her. Now, how many children do you have?
3.
How long have you been receiving child care money from the state for the 3 children?
Approximately a year.
Starting when?
It started again March 27th of 06.
And where were you working in March?
I wasn't working. It was for me to be able to look for employment at that time.
Well, did you find employment?
I found employment July 3rd. I was hired at Glamour Shots.
So you're telling me from March 27th until July 3rd, the state was paying you to look for a job?
Yes.
To watch your children?
Yes, ma'am.
When did she start to babysit for you?
August 7th, 2006.
And where were you working at that time?
I wasn't working.
Well, what happened to the job that you started in July?
Oh, August, Glamour Shots. I'm sorry, Glamour Shots.
Are you still working there?
No, ma'am.
When did you stop working there? It's very easy to find out by calling them. When did you stop?
August 15th. I have my check stubs.
All right, so you worked there for a month?
Yes, ma'am.
And why did you leave there?
Because they weren't giving me enough hours.
Well, so you left that job because they weren't giving you enough hours and you went to a situation where you weren't working at all?
Yes, ma'am. There was a lot of other issues with that job.
So the county wasn't really getting a great bang for their buck by paying for your 3 children for daycare while you're looking for a job, and you had a job for a total of 1 month when you quit because they weren't giving you enough hours. Something doesn't sound right there, Miss Christopher. So she started working August 7th, and now a week later you're not working. So what are you doing when she's watching your children?
Out looking for work.
What does that mean?
I have to go to the workforce center, and they work with me to help me look for work.
Well, how many days a week do you go to the center?
It could be 4, sometimes 5.
Could it be 3?
It depends on what my job counselor...
When did you go to work?
Where did I go to work?
When? First is
I
when?
haven't. I'm looking for work right now. My children are not in child care right now at all.
So she started to work on August 7th. And when did you stop working?
I left her house on September 4th, I believe.
So you were there for 4 weeks.
Yeah.
How many hours a day did you watch the children, or did you live in her house?
She'd leave around maybe 10 o'clock in the morning, and she wouldn't get back till like 8 o'clock at night.
What about this aunt? Do you know anything about an aunt?
I never heard anything about her aunt watching her kids before this.
Where's the aunt?
She's at home.
She's not here?
No.
Well, how do you expect to prove to me that somebody else babysat for your children?
I have the proof.
Show me. What kind of proof are you showing me?
Oh, it's the hours that my aunt kept the children. She typed this up. She has the license.
I don't accept that, Miss Christopher. That's hearsay.
Okay. Well, that's what I have.
Well, your case is dismissed. My dear, she got a check for watching your children. You have no proof that somebody else watched your children. Ridiculous. Case is dismissed, that's all.
Crystal Kim says former roommates Marcus Thompson and Darian Harris won't return her furniture. Crystal also claims that Darian attempted to sexually assault her.
Miss Kim, how long have you known the defendants?
About a year.
And there came a time when you moved into an apartment with them. They already had the apartment.
Correct.
And when was that?
June 1st, 2007.
Did you have your own bedroom?
Yes, I did.
And you were supposed to pay rent?
That was not the agreement.
You going to live there free?
No.
Well, either you live there free or you pay rent.
What the agreement was if I were to move in, I would pay for utilities, I would pay for gas, I would pay for the cable, I would pay for the internet, the phone.
So you were going to pay all the utilities?
We shared the gas, and then I paid the majority of everything else, correct?
Is that your agreement?
No, that was not the
What was the agreement?
The agreement that we had when Crystal moved in with us, it was correct for internet, phone, cable, and some grocery.
Okay. When did you move out, by the way?
January 15th, 2008.
And I assume you have proof that you paid all those expenses while you were living there?
Yes.
Great. So that was the agreement. She wasn't going to pay rent. Phone, cable, internet, and buy groceries.
Yes.
Your claim is that when you moved in, you bought some furniture, and they were supposed to pay you back for their 2/3 of the furniture. When you moved out, on January 15th, 2008. You left the furniture there, and they refused to pay you for it, and they had never paid you for it. The defendants say that you did not pay rent. You used the word rent while you were there. You lived there for 9 months, and they're keeping the furniture. That's your defense.
Yes.
You also claim that one of these two young men assaulted you.
Yes.
And you want to be compensated for that harassment. So I'd like to see your checks for the phone bill, the cable, and the internet from June until January.
All the transactions were done in cash.
Then just give me the receipts.
I have the receipt of the furniture that was purchased on my
I'm not
credit card.
interested in the furniture. Listen to what their defense is. Their defense is that you lived there free for 9 months, and they let you live there free without paying these expenses that you were supposed to pay because you had purchased furniture. Am I reading your defense correctly?
Yes,
I mean, is that true? Pay the phone bill.
she did.
And she paid for groceries?
That was breached.
When?
That was breached the second month that she was there. Crystal purchased groceries 2, maybe 3 times at the most. And then it became a situation where she just purchased food for herself. And I also want to add that she was only...
Just a second. Did you have that discussion with them?
No. I moved in. I paid for groceries for everybody. Everybody was fed. It got to a point where after a while, I was never even there. I was working 2 jobs. I went to school full time. I was never home to eat. I was never home to go grocery shopping. The agreement when I moved in was nothing about groceries at all.
Well, you already told me you bought food for everybody.
I did, but I just help out.
But that was your agreement. That was your rent, Miss Kim. That was your rent, whether you were eating there or not. Then you should have gone back and said to them, listen, we have to redo this agreement because I'm not here and I'm not eating. So I don't want to buy groceries. I have a bedroom. I'll pay something towards the rent on the house or the apartment, but I'm not going to buy groceries because I'm not eating here.
I also gave them money for rent.
Oh, you did?
I did.
Oh, fine. You didn't tell me that. You told me you didn't give them money for rent.
The agreement was I didn't have to pay rent, but I still did.
How much did you pay them?
Whatever they asked me. One time they wanted $200. Next month they wanted $100. Our rent was only $500, so it was split between 4 people.
Who was the fourth?
My girlfriend. Well, she was a girlfriend. Her name is Tiffany.
Did she give you money?
No. I personally never witnessed or accepted rent money from Crystal. And just a quick point, Crystal came home every night. It was never a night when she ever didn't come home.
Did you ever accept any cash from her?
In situations where we needed help with the utilities, never for rent. Rent was always handled by Darian and I.
Whatever it was, you accepted cash from her.
Small deposits, Your Honor.
Whatever. All right, you have to give the furniture back. Do you understand? Furniture goes back to her. You cannot have a loose kind of arrangement like this and expect somebody else to figure out. You're supposed to have a contract. It doesn't always have to be in writing. It should be in writing.
Yes.
But you have to have a contract. You pay $40 a week, plus your own phone. You pay $200 a month, plus a quarter of the utilities. You can't have this nebulous arrangement and then expect me to figure it out. Do you understand?
Yes.
Put your hand down. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I understand.
Perfect. So she's getting her furniture back 5 days.
They've damaged the furniture.
Listen, you shouldn't have left it there any longer than you had to. 5 days from today, you get your furniture back. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Very good. Put your hand down.
Okay.
5 days from today, she gets her furniture back. Do you understand?
Yes.
Now, you want to give me this assault in 30 seconds or less? Now, Miss Kim, you want to give me this assault in 30 seconds or less?
Sure. One night, Friday night, October, we went out to a bar. Probably 9 o'clock, we all got home from work. We all went, we had a couple of drinks. We came home and we watched a movie. When I fell asleep, we all fell asleep. Marcus and Tiffany decided to go into the bedroom and go to bed where Darian waited outside for me.
Who's Darian?
That's me.
Go ahead.
I woke up, it was at 7 a.m. He was on top of me, one hand down unbuttoning my pants, another trying to touch the upper part of my breast.
And?
I eventually woke up. I pushed him off.
So you pushed him off, and?
I ran into my bedroom.
And that was in October?
That was October. I locked myself in my room.
Yeah, and?
Called my girlfriend, didn't know what to do.
And?
I stood there overnight, waited till everyone woke up. I grabbed Marcus, talked to Marcus, and asked him what I should do. And he told me, he's like, I'll be behind you 100%, but
you lived there October, November, and December. Are you telling me that you didn't speak to, what's your name?
Darian.
Darian?
No, we spoke.
October, November, and December?
We spoke.
Did you tell him that his advances were uncalled for and unwarranted?
Yes, and he apologized.
And you stayed there? And did you have any trouble with him after that?
I did.
Tell me.
He thought that he could do whatever. He made me feel uncomfortable.
Who cares what he made you feel uncomfortable? Getting your furniture back. Stop with the nonsense. He made unwanted advances. He apologized. Everybody had a little too much to drink. You were on the couch. Were you on the couch?
Yes, I was on the couch.
Shouldn't have done it. Stopped. Didn't assault you in any way. Didn't
touching my breasts.
Didn't.
And getting down my pants is...
Did you call the police?
He told me not to.
Did you call the police?
No, I didn't.
Did you stay there for 3 months?
Yes.
Goodbye, Miss Kim. You get your furniture back.
Melanie Clegg claims ex-boyfriend Newell Olmsted owes for rent and a television. Newell claims he's already paid his debt.
Mr. Olmsted, the plaintiff indicates in her complaint that you purchased a television set while the two of you were together, and you lived together for a period of time. You separated, and Ms. Clegg indicates that you separated because she found out some things that she didn't know about you. Does that be a fair statement? Mm-hmm. You have the television set. The payments for that television set was still outstanding when she left. It was some $1,200 left.
It was $1,257.
And on whose credit was it purchased?
Mine.
You got the TV.
Yes, ma'am.
You want the TV?
It's my TV, yeah.
It's not your TV unless you pay for it.
I did pay for it.
Show me.
What
date did you separate?
We separated in December.
December 2009.
2008.
Okay. After December of 2008, she says that when you separated, there was $1,257 still owing.
There was only $1,000 owed on it, and I transferred that money into her account in January. 2 transactions from my account to her account for $500 each a transaction. She didn't pay it off in time. Then the interest kicked in. There's 2 transactions. There's one on the first day. There's actually 3 transactions to her account equaling $1,500. The third one was for a credit card that she said I owed her $500 on, so I paid that as well.
Okay, explain that to me.
He did transfer money into my account. It was for a credit card that he had on my name because he didn't have good credit, so he could not get any credit in his name.
Well, how much was owed on the credit card at the
time? There was $400. The balance was $1,000. There's $400 charge, and it says on her attorneys for his divorce. And he also owed me for his child's dentist that I was paying, which I have proof here also that I was paying.
I'm not getting so involved in this complicated case. You understand that?
Yes.
And I want to know how much was owed on this credit card when you separated in December.
$1,062.
Take a look at this, sir.
All that one is the form.
The only thing on this that I owe was $400, and I paid her $500.
$400 for?
She paid my retainer for my attorney for my divorce with this credit card, okay?
How much?
She paid $400.
Yes.
I paid her $500 for the interest. So I transferred $500. There's 3 transactions there of $500 apiece.
And so what you're telling me is none of those other transactions on that credit card are yours?
I mean, no.
Look carefully.
That's only 1 month statement.
That's dinner.
Only, I wasn't trying to get for that credit card. I was just saying that some of it.
She asked me.
No. Listen to me, Miss Clegg, very carefully. I see he transferred $1,500 to you at the end of December and the beginning of January.
$1,500?
Yeah. 3 payments of $500, 2 on January 7th and 1 on January 21st.
I did not get those transactions.
Those are my bank records from my bank account to her bank account. So I don't know how she couldn't have got them.
Miss Clegg, I just need your checking account for the months of December and January.
Here we go.
December 2008, January 2009.
Do you want the withdrawals or just the deposits that he had given me?
The statement. You should have it. Transfer from. I have 1 January 7th for $500 that you did, in fact, get. There is only 1 on January 7th for $500, sir, not 2.
Oh, you know, as Clegg L. That's a different account. I transferred that because she said that she needed to put it into a savings account. So
just a second. You have 2 that you've outlined on January 7, both to Clegg M.
Okay.
She only received 1, but they're 2 different numbers. Hold on a second.
Yeah, there's 2 bank accounts. I mean, one of them was
whoa. Wait a second. How many different bank accounts do you have?
I have 2 savings, and I have one, which the L is my mother.
That's where you told me to transfer it
No, no,
to.
no, no, no. I have are 2 different savings account
Yes,
numbers.
I do. I have 2 accounts. I have
2
that's
different
my
savings
mom's, and I have
accounts.
2 other savings accounts.
Show me those 2 savings accounts.
I can show you on the internet. I don't have anything with that
Don't
because
show me on the internet.
yeah, there's nothing. I have nothing.
Well,
to
then
do.
you take a look at these.
Okay. Yeah, Clegg L is my mother, not me.
I just put it in the account she told me to put it in.
You owe my mother money.
Oh, now I owe her mother money.
No, I believe you. Mr. Olmsted,
Yes, ma'am.
I see where you gave her $1,500. She says she only received 1 payment of $500. That's a lie.
Yes, ma'am.
She received 3 payments of $500. 2 went into her savings accounts and 1 went into her checking account.
Yes, ma'am.
So I don't believe that he only gave you 1 payment of $500. Now,
One of the Clegg L is my mom.
I don't care.
But that goes towards the TV?
His defense is that he gave you money after he moved out. Some of it was for his credit card, for his lawyer, and some of it was for the TV, $1,000 for the TV, which at that time, that's what was owed on the TV, which he paid for. He said the fact that you didn't make the payment on it and it went up to $1,200 is not his problem. If I believe him, then he doesn't owe you any money for the TV.
I put $1,000 down on that TV too, which I have proof of.
I don't care. TV, listen to me. All I'm concerned about is whether when you moved out there was any money due and owing on the television that he kept. And there was.
Yes.
And I find that he paid you for it. Now, the next thing I'm going to go over with you, what you say, you loaned him for rent.
Yes.
Now I'll hear what you say. You loaned him for rent. After you broke up, after you moved out, go.
I paid $2,600 to rent. He came to me in January of '09 and asked me if I could help him because he could not afford it and it would not look good in his divorce if he didn't have a place to stay. So I paid in January 2nd, I believe it is, I paid $995, which he was planning on paying me after his divorce. And
just a minute. Put your hand down. I saw it. Didn't you see me looking at you?
Well, I'm just making sure you saw me.
I couldn't miss it. Now, first show me proof that you gave him $2,600.
Okay. Here's that 1, 2, 3.
Don't give him anything. What are you showing me here?
The withdrawals out of the account were the rent for his house. That's a Wells Fargo account. It goes into a Bank of America account. And I had cash so that it wasn't the exact same amount every single month because I was...
Did she give you any money towards rent?
She didn't give me any money. She paid, I mean, yes, she did go pay the rent for us.
When?
January, February, March, but she received half the rent from him, so I don't know why she pulled out
On 1
$900.
month.
Shh. January, February, March. Now, she was not living with you then.
No, she moved out in December. Just stuck us with everything, just moved out.
And who were you living with at that time?
He moved in, or he decided to stay to help me with the rent since she moved out.
Was this apartment in both your names or just your name?
It was just in my name, but we lived there together, yes.
Did you move in together or did she
December,
move in?
yes. We moved in together in December of '08, and she moved out in December of '08.
Where had you been living before?
We had a house that we rented. We wanted to get into a cheaper place, so we got into a place that was $300 less a month.
When you lived in the house, were you sharing expenses?
Yes.
And why did you move out in December?
Because he was with my sister's best friend.
Well, that's a very good reason to leave.
That's not true, Your Honor.
Even if she thinks it, it's a very good reason
It is
to
true,
leave.
but the reason we split up is because she cheated on me.
I don't care.
So-
Actually, that's for another program, another time slot, not mine. I don't actually care about that. All I want to know is she moved out, the lease is in solely your name.
Yes.
And would you tell me why she paid any of the rent for January, February, and March?
She was helping me out, like she said. You know, I didn't
She
have...
was helping you?
Yes.
Why, if she was furious with you, because that's what she says, she was furious with you.
I didn't say she was furious.
Why? She says.
She says she's furious. I didn't. Why?
No. Listen to me. Hey,
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
why would somebody who is furious with you, she says she was furious with you, give you money?
That baffles me.
I
had
wouldn't
no
give you a
idea.
penny.
I wouldn't either.
She found out about him being together with her friend.
Listen, go get your 15 minutes someplace else, but don't shout out here.
I'm not trying to get 15 minutes. I'm just trying to state facts.
I don't want you to state anything unless I ask you to.
I raised my hand earlier and I didn't get a turn.
Excuse me.
But tell him not to go far in case I need him.
Will do.
I'm pretty sure we'll need him.
Oh, I'm not sure.
Okay.
Just as long as she knows that he's here. The gentleman, Motormouth, who was here a moment ago, did he give you any money?
No,
towards rent?
He gave me zero.
You never got any money from him?
From him, no. If it came from his account, I don't know where the money came from.
Did you get any money?
That $500 that I put on there that says Tim's half of rent on that page, yes, that's the $500 of Tim's half of rent.
Who is Tim?
Motormouth.
Motormouth.
Yes.
Okay, so you got that money.
That's it.
Well, that's what I'm asking you. So you got $500 of the 26 that you gave him, which means you're out $2,100.
If that's what, can I ask you something?
You're out $2,100.
Can I ask you something? Is that going towards the TV?
Forget the TV. The TV's over. I've already made a judgment on the
but
TV.
if you're accounting that $500 transferred from his account that you see out of Newell Olmstead's account into my account, the $500.
I thought it was from him.
It's out of Newell Olmstead's account.
Oh, well, you can't use that same $500, Mr. Olmstead, 10 times.
I'm not.
You can only use it once.
Tim gave her...
Listen to me.
Yes, ma'am.
Listen to me. You might be a very, very nice man and have many redeeming qualities. You're not George Clooney. Nobody who's not living with you, sir, is going to pay $2,600 for your rent. Not somebody that looks like that. Do you understand? Take a good look. Somebody that looks like that is not going to pay $2,600 for your rent after she's already broken up with you.
I agree.
But that's what she did.
No, she did not. Tim paid her $450. His part of the rent, he paid her. So that's not true. Yes, she helped
I don't
me.
believe that. And I don't believe Motormouth.
Okay.
I don't believe you should have had nothing to do with her. After you separated, you should have nothing to do with her. How come she gave you money? Did you call her and tell her that you needed money for rent?
I asked her to help me with rent. Yes,
Good. You owe her $2,600. Judgment for the plaintiff. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
20-year-old Robert Aiken is suing his ex-fiancée, 22-year-old Cheryl Smith, for unpaid bills and late fees. Cheryl claims Robert is obsessed with her.
Mr. Aiken, Miss Smith was your fiancée for a period of time. I assume you lived together for a period of time. And it is your claim that you put some money into her checking account in order to pay some bills.
Correct.
You broke up, and she put a stop payment on the bills you had paid. Well,
Yeah, she did it online. She stopped all payments.
I don't understand how you do that. I like that little checkbook. You write it out, you deposit it. I don't understand the online stuff, but you want that money back.
Correct.
Ms. Smith said nothing could be farther from the truth. You put money into the account. You did pay bills with the money you put into the account. You started to pay some more bills with money that you hadn't put into the account, so she put a stop payment on those bills. She has a counterclaim. She says that at some point immediately preceding your breaking up, she covered the entire rent because you were short, so that you owe her for rent. And in addition, and more importantly, she says that since the breakup, you've been involved in some serious harassment. So the money part should be relatively easy. How much money did you put into her account?
Total, two checks of $420 and $316.84, so $736.84.
When?
The $420 was put in on August 12th, and the $316.84 was put in August 11th.
When had you covered the rent, Ms. Smith?
I wrote the check on August 1st.
And how much was the rent?
$662.70.
Was it your responsibility to pay the rent?
We both paid the rent. It was joint money.
Immediately prior to the 11th of August, when did you make your preceding deposit in her bank account?
I would give her cash when I got my check because she was writing all the checks for bills. So I would just cash and stuff of that nature. I have no proof of it. Sorry. I'm a hand person.
Now, he put in the $736. What bills did he pay with it?
Well, my counterclaim is I have bills that total $548.44 that I paid for him, in addition to the rent for $662.70.
It wasn't like a split right down the middle. We were
Well,
just
it should be. It's all sounding very good for Miss Smith, Mr. Aiken. What I want to know is, did she make payments for you in the amount of $548? To whom?
She made certain bills.
To whom?
There was a $200 payment to his father.
That was to your father.
That's correct.
What, do you owe him money?
A car payment. It's in his name.
Go ahead.
$63.94 for his Comcast bill.
Uh-huh.
I also have penalties in which I was charged in order to stop the 3 payments that he was unauthorized to make.
Just a second. I want to know what the payments were that you made, not the fees. The payments were that you made.
And without the penalties, there were bills totaling $196 made prior.
Made prior to when?
Prior to August 1st for him.
Forget it. You paid $263 that you can account for, not $548. You know, you look like butter with melt in her mouth. You know, you keep turning it around, and she becomes a more interesting character. 736 minus 263, $473. That's what's left over. Now, we're going to say that he owes you half for the rent, because that's part of your counterclaim. So we're going to take off $330 from that. $143 you owe him. You got it?
Now, what about the payments that she stopped, though?
Good, she stopped them. Good, she should stop them. $143. Gets expensive when you play house. Now I want to hear about the harassment, because that troubled me. You say that he called you over 100 times in a short period of time?
That is correct.
Let me see. Why do you keep calling her, Mr.
There
Aiken?
were different occasions equaling up to it. I was trying to call her in the beginning to try to get some of the money without going to court. And then from time to time, she would be like, okay, well, I'll pay you something. And she'd be like, well, let's meet up here. And say we say at 1 o'clock, it'd be like 1:30, 2 o'clock. So I'd call her. She'd be like, yeah, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there. So it's just different phone calls basically trying to resolve this money issue.
Well, but I'm looking at it.
It's just continuous.
For instance, I'm looking on the 23rd of August after another. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 18 calls, one right after another.
That would just, as far as that was
Were you
just,
leaving messages on her machine?
No, I didn't leave voicemails. I left, I think, maybe one voicemail. The rest were she'd pick up the phone and then she'd hang it up, and I'd try to get back to her and talk to her, trying
She doesn't
to...
want to talk to you.
I understand that.
Well, but when do you start getting that message, Mr. Aiken, that she doesn't want to talk to you? If, according to you, she picks up the phone and hangs up, she doesn't want to talk to you.
I was just trying to get money, like I said, with these bills,
You
the credit
kept
cards
annoying
and
her.
cell phones. When the payments got stopped,
You
they shut off
kept
the cell
annoying
phone.
her. Since August, have there been any further calls?
Not since the personal protection order was issued.
Okay, do you have a copy of that?
Absolutely.
Let me see. Was it a permanent order or a temporary order?
It holds for 1 year.
So you consented to this, sir?
Yeah.
Well, if you consented to it, of necessity, the judge had to say to you, you're entitled to a trial, right?
Yeah, we showed up and had a hearing.
Oh, you had a hearing, so the judge found you guilty of harassing her.
Yeah, I told him the story, and I told him the phone calls, and he gave it to her.
Okay, but after that, you stopped.
Yeah, I have not contacted her since.
Anything else you want to tell me about your counterclaim, Ms. Smith?
Yes. As far as for the harassment, this has seriously been going on for a long time. Numerous phone calls and numerous times showing up at my place of employment, numerous times threatening my child, numerous times threatening me. He's physically assaulted me.
After he physically assaulted you, did you remain in the relationship?
No.
When, according to you, was the first time that he physically became violent with you?
On August 7th.
So that was about the time that you were breaking up?
That is correct.
Okay, so this wasn't a history, as you indicated?
No.
Fine. And what did he do to you on the 7th?
On the 7th, he shoved me into a wall and left me captive in the closet of our apartment until I had talked to him.
I don't understand that.
Our closet is a small room. I was in there actually packing some clothes, and he stood in the doorway and refused to allow me to leave.
So he kept you captive there?
Correct.
Because he wanted to talk to you?
Correct.
He's over it. You get over it. He's finished, right?
Correct.
Going to stay away from her? Going to get you $148?
Correct.
Leave her alone?
Without question.
You made a bad choice. Put a period. Move on. Counterclaim is dismissed. That's all.
Dora Huff claims a strange son-in-law, Paul Veloff, owes for bail money she posted on his behalf.
Ms. Huff, the defendant is your soon-to-be ex-son-in-law. I assume this is your daughter.
Yes, ma'am.
And it is your claim that he owes you money for bail.
Yes, ma'am.
And that he agreed to pay you back once you had bailed him out, and he has declined to do so. Mr. Veloff says you made no agreement with him with regard to the bail money. You made an agreement with his wife. So if you want the bail money paid, get it from your daughter. That's your defense.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Veloff, how long have you been married?
13 years, 14 years?
13 or 14 years.
13.
You have children?
Yes, 2.
How many?
2.
When were you arrested, sir?
It was filed on July 4th, but I actually turned myself in on that Sunday, which would have been I think the 6th, 7th
Of
July, I'm sorry.
7/7 of 06?
Yes.
Is this the first time you had been arrested, sir?
Yes.
And this was for domestic violence?
Yes.
And the domestic violence alleged that you either assaulted or threatened or harassed your wife?
Right.
Were you in or out of the house on the 7th of July?
In the house.
No. Okay. Mrs. Veloff, when did you complain about your husband's conduct to the police?
The incident of 4th of July.
Tell me about the incident.
We have been having marital problems for quite a while, and a recurring situation came up again that he was not working and taking care of his responsibilities. It escalated into a yelling argument that turned physical. Shortly after, well, the argument went on for quite a while. He was restraining me. I was not allowed. I was undressed coming out of the shower. He wouldn't allow me to get dressed. He wouldn't allow me to leave the master bedroom. Finally, when I did get out of the bedroom, I made it down to the lowest floor of the house, got a phone, and dialed 911. While I was on the phone with the dispatcher, he left the property. While he was gone, they dispatched 2 sheriff's vehicles to the house. They took my statement, took photos.
A copy of the statement, please. Do you have a copy of that police report?
No, ma'am, I do not.
Okay. They took photographs of what?
They took photographs of the marks on my body and the damage to the home.
What kind of marks did you have on your body?
My arms were bruised where he had grabbed me and forcibly threw me on the bed. My neck was irritated and red.
Your Honor, I do have a copy of the...
I'd like to see them. Where were your children when all this was going on?
There was a 4th of July community picnic that my daughter was at, and my son was outside playing basketball with a friend of his. I believe, well, he was in the driveway. I think they were playing basketball.
How old are your children?
14 and 12.
What's the status of this protective order?
Of the restraining order?
Yeah, what's the status of the case?
The case was dismissed.
When was the case dismissed?
It went to trial while my mother and I were in Italy for 2 weeks. It was dismissed because I did not show to testify.
Why didn't you appear to testify?
I was in Italy.
Why did you go to Italy during the trial?
It was already pre-planned, the trip. All of the subpoenas for me to appear were in my mail when I got back.
Your Honor, this was a 2-week Mediterranean cruise. We had planned 7 months prior to take all the kids and grandkids, everybody.
Got it. But, Ms. Veloff, after he was arrested, because he turned himself in, according to your mother's complaint, he called you and asked you to bail him out, right?
Yes.
How much was your bail?
$2,000.
And why did you think your wife would bail you out when she was the one who filed the complaint?
Well, I called her because it started getting really rough in the jail, and I've never experienced anything like that. And I called her.
How rough was it?
They found knives, shanks.
So you wanted out of there?
Yeah, and it was Wednesday night. The other inmates were starting to get their commissary or whatever they buy for the week, and a lot of it was like cold medicine, and they were chopping it up and snorting it, and I could see attitudes change, and it started getting really scary.
So you were frightened?
Yes.
So you called your wife?
Yes, I did.
And what did you say to her?
I asked her to call my dad to see if he would bail me out.
Why didn't you call your dad?
Why didn't I call my dad?
That's exactly what I said. Why didn't you call your dad? Why are you calling the alleged victim instead of calling your father directly? Don't you speak to him?
Yes, I do.
So then why didn't you call your father yourself?
The phone calls I was able to make were very limited.
Well, I understand they're very limited. I've been in the justice system a very long time. There's no reason that you're going to be able to give me that I'm going to be satisfied with, sir, as to why you didn't call your father yourself.
I don't know.
Ma'am?
Maybe your wife is going to tell me.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you call his father?
First of all, he called the house and spoke to our son, who then called me. So by the time I got the phone call, our son was frantic with worry, thinking that his father was in mortal jeopardy.
Okay.
And then I did go and call his father, and his father said no.
That's why you didn't call him.
No, that's not true.
Otherwise, sir, you know, if something doesn't make sense, it's usually not true. How old is your son?
14.
Before I would involve my 14-year-old son in the fact that I was incarcerated and I was frightened for my life, I would call my father. If I had a decent relationship with my father and if I felt that my father would want to protect me, I certainly wouldn't involve my teenage child. That's not being a protective parent.
I did not know he was going to answer the phone.
What kind of
proceeded to...
Just a second. What kind of dumb answer is that?
I mean,
What kind of a dumb answer? So because he answered the phone, you unloaded on him?
I didn't unload.
Well, of course you did. Okay. So now you're between a rock and a hard place. You got your 14-year-old child saying you got to do something to get dad out of jail. You got his father who says, as far as I'm concerned, I'm not putting up any money for him. You don't have any money, so you call your mother.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and you say, you got to help me out here. You got to help me out. And she goes down and she puts up the bond. That's so far what happened.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, when you got out of jail, Mr. Veloff, who was there?
Who was there? My kids, my wife, and my mother-in-law.
And what did you say to your mother-in-law?
Thank you.
What else did you say to her? What else did he say?
And he hugged me, and he thanked me, and I told him two things. One, he had to get his act together, and two, because he didn't have a job, he had to pay me back, and he owned 2 cars, which he'd already told Tracy he would do. I expected him to sell one of the 2 cars.
To pay you back?
To pay me back
Just
for my
a sec-
credit card. I'm sorry.
And did he pay you back?
No, ma'am.
Why should your mother-in-law pay your bail?
I didn't ask her to.
No, you didn't ask her to. That's absolutely right, Mr. Veloff. You did not ask her to. But you promised to pay her back. But you promised to pay her back. You didn't ask her to, and absolutely, if you hadn't said to her, I'm going to pay you back, that unfortunately for Miss Huff, there would have been no recourse. The truth of the matter is, at the time that she put up the bail for her daughter and her grandchildren. Because as far as she was concerned, you could have rotted in hell. I'm sure. I'm sure. If she didn't have grandchildren, that's probably what she would have said to her daughter. Let him stay there. But she has grandchildren, and you can't do that when you have teenage grandchildren. You can't say, listen, you're going to let your father rot in jail, so he's going to call here and he's going to complain that somebody's going to shank him. Mr. Veloff, as you see, sir, I have zero sympathy for your position morally, and I have zero sympathy for your position legally. If you had not told your mother-in-law that you would pay her back.
I promised to get my act together and get a job.
Just a second. Just a second. Did you get your act together?
Yes.
Did you get a job?
Yes.
Good. Now you have money to pay her back. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $2,020. That's all. Step out.
19-year-old Kelsey Stewart is suing her ex-boyfriend, 21-year-old Joshua Marriott, for the cost of a bass guitar. Kelsey says Joshua sold it without her permission.
Ms. Stewart, according to what I read in your complaint, you and the defendant were an item some time ago, and while you were together, you loaned him a precious guitar.
Yes.
That had been given to you. You'll explain to me why it's so sentimental. You gave it to Mr. Marriott to use, according to him, in his band. And then you broke up. According to him, this was a gift. He had no use for it after a period of time. And then it was sold. Not by him, but by his mother. Where did you get this guitar?
My father had given me the guitar for a Christmas present before
When?
he passed away in 2001.
So it was sentimental for you?
Yes, it was very.
And when did your father pass away?
He passed away 5 months later.
Why did he give you a guitar?
He, for some reason, decided that I was going to play bass guitar, so he finally just bought one for me.
Did you learn?
No, he passed away before I could get lessons.
How come you gave it to him?
Lack of judgment. I shouldn't have.
Tell me when you gave it to him.
The following year.
When in 2002?
May.
Summer, fall, winter, or spring?
Spring.
And when did you break up with him?
We had broken up before then, actually.
Well, then, why transfer this sentimental guitar to someone with whom you no longer had a relationship?
We were still friends at the time, and we were still on good terms. Like I said, better lack of judgment.
Well, tell me about when you turned it over to him. I want to hear.
He was at his house. I drove with my current boyfriend to drop it off.
Why would you do that?
He asked if he could loan the guitar. We had actually discussed it before when we were dating, and so it came up as, remember when you said I could borrow the guitar? And he said that he needed it to go on tour with his band, and I said that I would loan it to him until I needed it back.
When did you think you were going to need it back?
I wasn't sure.
Did you ask to borrow the guitar for the group to go on tour?
Yes, I did. And the band didn't end up going on tour. And after that, I just put it in my garage and it just sat there. And I didn't hear from her for 2 years.
That's not true.
Well, when was the next time you contacted him about your guitar?
I was unable to get a hold of him for about a few months, and then before I left, I found him online again.
Well, just a second. You drove it over to his house, you said. Did he move?
Yes, he did.
No forwarding address.
He would not take my phone calls, and so the only way I was able to contact him was online. And I contacted him and I said I was moving to San Diego and I was going to need the guitar back to take with me. He said it was in storage and that it would be fine and it would be returned, no questions asked.
When was this?
September of 2003.
Did you have it in storage?
Yes, I did.
Could you stand up? You don't need anything to hold on to, right? When she contacted you and you said it was in storage, you were telling her the truth.
No, actually, I wasn't.
Well, was it in storage or wasn't it in storage?
It was in storage, and then my mother sold it.
So this wasn't a couple of years later. This was a year later, September of 2003, when she contacted you and you told her it was in storage, you can have it back, no problem. So you were lying.
I actually contacted her, which is the funny thing, because I found her on a site called MySpace. And if I would have known that she would have attacked me on the internet for this guitar.
Your Honor, that was 2 years later.
When she contacted you and said, I'm moving to San Diego.
She told me that she was in San Diego when she contacted me. I was also looking for her, too.
Why were you looking for her?
So I could give it back to her before my mom was going to sell it.
Did your mother have permission to sell it?
Yes, she did.
She had your permission to sell it?
Yes, because it...
How big is this bass guitar?
Like this.
Where were you living and where was your mother living?
I was living in Campbell with my grandparents, and my mother was living in Gilroy.
Why couldn't you take the guitar with you?
Because I kept on moving around too myself, and I wasn't going to carry someone else's belongings with me.
Oh. Did you have any clue that this was a gift from her father?
No, I did not.
Is that right?
No, he would have known. It was a very sentimental thing, and I would have told him.
Yeah, I assume you would have told him.
If it was so sentimental, why would you let me borrow it?
Like I said, it was
Well,
a lack
that's
of
a good
judgment.
question. You want to know why? Because sometimes people in affairs of the heart behave irrationally. I tell you this for sure, Mr. Marriott, I wouldn't have loaned you the guitar. What kind of a guitar was it?
It was an Ibanez bass guitar.
And how much will it cost you to replace it?
$300.
You have any papers to prove that?
Yes, I do.
Let me see. Is this a picture of the guitar?
Yeah, but it was red.
It was not red.
Yes, it was.
Wasn't quite interested in the color, but that's what it looks like.
Yes.
Judging for the plaintiff in the amount of $300. Goodbye, good luck, have a happy life. This one doesn't have any sentimental value, but at least you have it. Bye.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Monica Roth says former friend Justin Judy backed her car into another vehicle. Justin claims it was a drunken Monica who was behind the wheel.
Ms. Roth, it is your claim that you were at a party, the defendant was at a party. He moved your car, and he did so without asking you, and he dented it. The defendant says that it was you who were drunk, moved your own car, and dented it yourself. That's your defense, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Was this party at your house?
Yes, it was, ma'am.
How many people did you have at the party?
20, 25.
How old are you?
I'm 20, going on 22, 21 right now.
Well, hopefully, if I let you, you'll be 22. Right now, you're 21. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Who do you live with?
I live with my witness here and another person.
So you have 2 roommates?
Yes, ma'am.
What kind of work do you do?
I'm in construction.
What night of the week was this?
I think it was a Friday night or, yeah, Friday night.
Okay. And did you know Miss Roth before your party?
Yes, I did.
All right, Miss Roth, were you present when the defendant got into your car?
No, I was not. I was inside.
Who was?
My witness, Tita, was in the car.
Tell me your name.
Tita Chewin.
Miss Chewin, did you know the defendant prior to this evening?
Yes, Your Honor.
Was there drinking at the party?
Yes.
Any drugs at the party?
No.
None that you saw?
Not that I saw.
But drinking?
Yes.
All right, tell me what happened with the car.
We went outside to...
Who's we?
The 3 of us. We went outside to grab CDs, and it was a summer night, so we had tank tops on and skirts, and we wanted to grab shirts to put over. So we went out to the car, she grabbed her CDs, I grabbed my shirt, I put it on, she went back inside the house, and she left the keys for me. So I was in the passenger seat getting ready to leave, and he claims the truck in front of him needed to be moved, so he hopped in, and I told him, Monica...
Okay, he said that the car that you were in had to be moved?
Yes.
Okay.
The car was on accessories, but the engine wasn't on. He started it and...
Don't speak!
He started it and slammed on the gas without even looking behind him. And before he started the car, I told him, Monica would not want you driving her car. It's brand new. She doesn't even let us drive her car. I've known her since elementary school. We're really close. And he just slammed on the gas without even looking behind him, and I told him, don't you want to look behind you? And next thing I know, there's a big crash, and he jumps out of the car.
Did he say anything to you?
No, he just jumped out.
Did he put the car in park and jump out? Did he turn it
Oh,
off?
he pulled it up really quick so she wouldn't know, and then jumped out of the car.
So first he went backwards.
Yep, and then he pulled it up.
So he changed gears.
Yes.
I just want to go step by step with me. So let's go step by step. First, it was in reverse.
Yep, and he slammed on the gas, hit the car, was like startled, and then he pulled it up back to where she had been parked, so it looked like her car wasn't moved, and hopped out of the car really quick.
And didn't say anything to you?
No.
So what did you do?
I was in shock, and then she came in, ran up to the window because she was across the street.
Tell me your name.
Keely Hartman.
Ms. Hartman, did you witness this?
I just heard a crash. I didn't see it actually happen.
But you heard the sound?
I heard the sound.
Did you see the defendant?
I saw someone running away from the car, and that's when I ran over immediately because I saw it was Monica's car.
But you didn't see who it was?
I didn't.
Didn't see a face, or you didn't see whether it was a man, woman?
I saw a shadow running from the car.
Okay. Did the defendant say anything to you when you went back inside?
I peeked inside the window of the driver's side door, and I saw her in the passenger seat, and I looked and I saw nobody in the driver's seat, and I go, where's Monica? And she just said she's in the house. That's when I looked over and I saw Justin crouching over by the bumper, and he said to me, don't tell her it's not a big deal, it's not even noticeable. And that's when I ran inside and grabbed Monica.
Okay, so he said to you, don't tell her it's not a big deal, it's not even noticeable.
Yes.
How long have you known the defendant?
A couple years.
Have had any problem with him? No. You like him?
Do I like him?
Yeah, I mean, like him as a person. He's okay, isn't he?
Yeah.
What about you?
Before this incident, I thought he was great.
Thought he was great. Never had any problem with him. Thank you. You can be seated.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's your turn. Did you get a turn?
All those girls are lying.
Stop! Listen to me. Listen to me very, very carefully, sir. I make a judgment as to who's lying.
Okay.
You have the opportunity, if you wish, to explain to me your version of the events that evening.
Okay.
I assume you brought this gentleman because he has something to contribute to this case.
Yes, I did, ma'am.
Your name is?
James.
James, you have a last name.
Johnson.
How old are you?
22.
Do you have parents?
Yes.
Do they like you?
Sometimes.
I want you to think about them when making a decision to testify, James.
Yes.
Do you understand what I'm saying to you?
Yes.
Okay. Let me hear.
Okay, in my defense. July 9th, we were having these girls showed up to my house intoxicated, had parked her car behind a truck of my friends, asked her to move it, she moved it, backed into the car that was behind her, which was the black one.
And you saw all this?
Yeah, I was out in the street telling, everybody was about ready to leave, the whole part, you know, it was
And
like,
you saw all of this?
yeah, I saw the whole thing.
Go ahead.
I was in the street talking to a bunch of friends, and you know, that happened, that transpired. And then she decided to leave belligerently, circle the block, and then come back, screaming, raving, whatever. She was intoxicated and all that stuff.
So you had a party at your house. Did you serve alcohol,
No,
or did the
not to
people
them.
bring out? Shh. Did you serve alcohol, or did the people bring alcohol?
They brought their own.
You just provided the site.
Yes, I just presided the area for people to party. But everybody at my house was 21, minus these 3 girls.
You mean I just happened to be fortunate enough to pick the 3 girls who were underage at your house?
Yes, ma'am. But they were intoxicated before they showed up to my house.
You want to speak?
Sure.
Who do you live with?
Justin, Judy, and another roommate.
So you lived together. And how long have you lived together?
For about a year and a half.
You know these 3 girls?
I know them from being at my house that night. I'd never even known them before.
What time did the party start?
Between 9 and 10 o'clock.
When did you start drinking?
Between 9 and 10 o'clock.
What were you drinking?
Beer.
What time did these girls arrive?
I'm not totally sure on that. I actually did not see them arrive. I didn't see them arrive. I didn't know they were there until well after they were there.
And what time was that?
Between 10 and 11 o'clock.
So the party was only going on for an hour?
Possibly.
What do you mean possibly?
I'm not sure. It was.
How many beers did you have between 9 and 10 o'clock?
Couple.
Couple could be 2 or 5.
Between 2 and 5.
What kind of work do you do?
Construction.
You work for the same place?
No. I install windows in residential housing. He seals driveways.
Seals them. Doesn't steal them. He seals them.
Yes.
So now, I want you to tell me what you saw.
Okay, I was...
No!
Sorry. I was at the party, and I was walking out.
What time?
It was late. I don't know.
Give me an idea.
Probably between 12 and 1.
Okay, so between 12 and 1. So let's say between 9 and 10 you had between 2 and 5 beers.
Yes.
And I would assume that once you had between 2 and 5, you lost track.
Nah, I didn't finish my 12-pack.
How much was left over?
2 or 3.
So maybe you had 10 beers.
Yeah, probably.
So now tell me what happened after midnight.
Well, after I came outside, I had seen Monica get in the car, back up, and bump into the other car. And it wasn't that big of an accident, so nobody really made a big deal out of it. And I seen her get out of the car, have a little conversation with him, and then I seen her get back in the car and drive away. It didn't happen all that quick, but that's the sum of it. Yes.
You may be seated.
Thank you.
Don't you feel like a jerk? Let me see the estimate on the car, please. Have a picture of the car?
Yep.
What kind of a car did he hit?
Cougar.
It was a black car, that's all.
Cougar?
I'm pretty sure it was a Mercury Cougar.
You know who it belonged to?
It was this kid, Jeremy, and he didn't even tell him that he hit his car.
But did you tell him?
He came out, and I think Keely or someone told him. I wasn't.
Who told the Cougar that his car got hit? Anybody?
I didn't. Well,
Nobody told him.
I don't think I didn't tell him. He heard from the people inside that someone's car had been hit, so he ran outside and saw that it was his car and was furious with Justin.
Is the Cougar man a friend of yours?
Yes, he's a very good friend of mine, actually.
How come he's not here?
He's
How come he's not here?
working.
Is he overseas? Is he fighting in the military?
He couldn't
Huh?
make it.
Couldn't make it.
No.
Too bad for you. He's a very good friend of yours. Seemed to me a very good friend. Instead of bringing this one over here, I certainly would have brought the person whose car. I'm speaking. I would have brought the person whose car was hit to testify that they know that it wasn't you who hit their car, it was somebody else who hit their car. Put your hand down.
He's the only one that saw it, though. The guy who owned the car did
You
not see
see how
anything.
many witnesses they have here, too? You see what you have on your side? Stop shaking your foot. It's making me nervous.
The guy whose car that she hit was not around and did not see it, did not know it happened until later in the night.
Your Honor, I have phone calls from Justin saying he will pay me the money and that he's so sorry that he did it, and he is doing everything he can to get me my money. And he just wants to pay cash, and he doesn't want to go to court.
You have them here?
Yes, I have.
Oh, I'd like to
I can
hear
call
that.
my voicemail.
Oh, sure, I'd like to hear that.
Yeah, please. It's her phone. She's gonna. There's two of them. So.
Ooh, I love to be right.
You've pressed an incorrect key. To disconnect, press 1. To record your message, press 2. Sorry you were having trouble. Please try again.
It's okay.
Can I try one more time?
Yes, of course.
Thank you.
I have all the time in the world.
Sorry.
Oh, just a sec. Before you do that, before we connect, you want to say anything else to me, Justin?
Like what?
Like I may have made that
I did that
phone
to help her out because it was on my property.
I'm speaking. Is there anything else that you want to say to me before we try to connect with this phone call?
I've said what I've had to say.
All right.
You've got my defense statement, so I'm sticking with that. That's what it is.
Go.
First saved message sent Friday, August 20 a.m.
Monica, it's Justin. I got your text message. I'm not trying to avoid you. I've been busy working a lot. We're really busy right now. Plus, I have another job. I'm trying to work as much as possible to get you your money. I do want to work for a while. I don't want to take this shit to court. I'm not trying to avoid you. So, I don't know. I got to work till midnight tonight. Give me a call whenever.
And
I have one more.
Resave. The next message sent Friday, August 5th at 9:11 p.m.
Monica, I'm calling you again because I'm trying to set up some sort of payment plan with you because I've been working a lot. I have 2 jobs. And yeah, so call me back and let me know what's up. I don't want to take the court. I'd rather pay you in cash and get it dealt with. Call me back.
End of.
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $967.53. That is for the repair on the car, damage to the vehicle. If I could add another couple of thousand to that for just being two wise guys, I would. You're an embarrassment, and you're an embarrassment to yourself and your parents. That's all.
Ashley Coggins says she loaned money to ex-boyfriend Daniel Piper so he could buy a 1990 Mustang. Ashley says Daniel has never paid her back.
Ms. Coggins, according to the complaint that I read, you and Mr. Piper lived together for a period of time.
Yes.
And you took out a loan.
Yes.
And the loan was to be primarily used for a car for you. What kind of a car did you buy?
1990 Mustang.
How much did you pay for it?
$3,200.
How much of a loan did you give him?
$4,500.
What'd you do with the rest?
Well, she got a portion of the money, approximately $300 to $400, and the rest of the money I used to plate the car and insure the car.
And then shortly after the loan, the two of you broke up.
Yes.
He made some payments on the loan and then stopped.
Yes.
You want him to pay the loan.
Yes.
Mr. Piper says that he was forced to sell the car, stop making the payments because you moved out of the apartment, leaving him with the lease and the bills, and he couldn't do everything, so he stopped making the car payments.
Well, I paid some payments. I did not.
How many payments did you make?
I believe 4.
And in what amount?
122 and some change.
Does that sound right?
I believe he made 4, but only $55 have been made since the payments were always late, and they were adding the interest and the payments were always late. He's only actually paid $55 on the loan.
Can I see the last statement, please?
Yes.
So I can look at it. Well, the balance is 4,445.20, but some of this is yours.
Right.
Well, let's say there's $4,000 left on the loan. Now, did you both sign a lease for this apartment?
Yes.
When did you sign the lease?
March of 2004.
And when did you move out?
I moved out July of 04.
Are you still in the apartment?
Yes.
What was the rent on the apartment?
$735 a month.
And what was your financial arrangement with regard to the rent?
I was supposed to pay all of the bills, the electric and the cable and the cell phone bills, and him and his brother were supposed to pay the rent. They were
Were there
supposed
three
to
of you
split
living
it.
there?
Yes.
Is that right?
My brother did move in, but we were not splitting the rent. That wasn't the agreement.
Yes, it was.
Why not?
Due to the fact my brother had just got back from the Navy, he was in a tight spot, he needed a place to live. I let him move in with us under the agreement that he would pay $200 a month.
Is he paying $200 a month?
Yes.
Then you're almost whole, sir. If the rent is $735, let him pay half the rent. He's not in a bind anymore.
I understand, but he's
Right.
also not on the lease.
I don't care whether he's on the lease or not. He's living there.
Yes.
I mean, your defense to this whole action with regard to the car is that she left you with the lease, which I would take into consideration, except for the fact that you moved your brother into the apartment and he can pay half the rent. I mean, he's a big boy.
Yeah, but what was I supposed to do when she left the lease, didn't have somebody else move in?
Listen to me very carefully.
Okay.
When you moved into the apartment together,
Mm-hmm.
the two of you, in March of '04, did your brother move in with you
Yes.
at the same time?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
With no agreement that he was to pay at least a third of the rent?
No. The agreement was $200.
Well, you better change the agreement, sir. Circumstances change. He's living there with you. Now, put your hand down. You sold the car.
Correct.
Two.
Kid named John.
Did you put a sign in the window?
No, I didn't.
Well, how did you sell it?
The kid came to my mother's house where the car was parked in the backyard. He had them get a hold of me because he wanted to purchase the car.
You mean it was like Karnak? He said, oh, this must be a car that's for sale?
Well, the person that I bought the car from was friends with this kid. He was looking for that kind of car, so he came to me.
How much did he pay for the car?
How much did he pay for it?
That's my question, sir. It doesn't give you an opportunity to think about an answer.
I just
you should
didn't
know
hear
that.
you.
You should know that like that.
Yes,
Don't play with me.
He paid $1,100 for the car.
Why didn't you give that $1,100 to her?
Why would I give it to her?
Well, who's supposed to pay this loan?
Me.
But you haven't been doing that.
At that time, I was still paying the payment.
But then you stopped.
Correct.
So why didn't you give her the $1,100?
Because I was paying the loan at the time. It was
But
up to
then you
date.
stopped.
The $1,100 by that point was gone. I mean, the situation I was in, I didn't
Who is this?
have... This is my girlfriend.
What is she here for?
Because she's been the one dealing with Ashley during this whole thing.
Why is she dealing with Ashley?
Because I repeatedly asked her not to call me. If she needed to get a hold of me, I asked her to ask her mother to call me, to email me, or to have...
I don't want to hear you unless I ask you a question.
I repeatedly asked
I'm
her
getting
not to call me.
frustrated with you, Mr. Piper.
Okay.
I'm getting frustrated with you, Mr. Piper. Somebody takes out a loan for you. You promise to pay them. You stop paying them. You sell the only equity that exists, which is your car.
Well, to tell you the truth, the car wasn't part of the loan.
Well, what was the loan for?
I'm saying there was no... That wasn't collateral on the loan or anything like that. Okay, this loan was just a personal loan. It wasn't a car loan.
I understand what it was, sir.
Okay.
She took out the loan to enable you to spend $3,200 plus tags and fees to buy a car.
Correct.
Of course I'm correct. You think you're smarter than I am?
No, ma'am.
On your smartest day. You're not as smart as I am on my worst day.
Okay.
What do you want?
I was wondering if I could say something.
Of course. I haven't had lunch.
Well, Danny was with Ashley throughout their whole high school career.
I don't give a, listen to me.
I
listen to me
understand that.
carefully. I don't give a rat's behind whether they were soulmates in utero.
Okay.
He took money from her.
I understand
listen,
that.
Try to be quiet and watch my mouth. He took money from her to buy a car. He stopped making payments on the car. He stopped making payments to her for the loan that she took out to enable him to buy a car. And then he has the gall to sell the car and not give her the proceeds.
She lived with Danny, was very unsatisfied with whatever Danny did. Left, did not pay any rent, didn't pay anything, asked him, oh, she is always in contact. Did you pay the rent? Did you pay this? Did you pay that? If you walked out, you are supposed to find someone to take your place. She did not do that. She left Danny with everything. Left him with the rent, the utilities. He had shut-off notices.
Listen to me.
A roof over your head is more important than a loan payment
When
that
my
she
mouth
should have
starts to move, yours is not moving. Do you understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Danny has a brother, a big, strong guy who served his country, who came back, and who now has a roof over his head, cable, gas, electric, rent. And these two boys have to manage to pay $735 rent. And they can get that by collecting cans if they need more money. His brother, if he is trying to find a job, can go and work in a fast food place for minimum wage. You can make $350 a month doing that. He has no right not to pay his debts. And if you are making excuses for him,
I'm not.
Good. Then you deserve each other. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $4,000. That's all. Step out.
Devin Fowler claims ex-husband Jason Fowler fraudulently cashed her student loan check. Jason denies the accusation.
Ms. Fowler, the defendant is your former husband, and it is your claim that the day before your divorce was finalized, your husband cashed a check from a student loan that was yours. It was a refund check. And in addition, he has some property that belongs to you. This all came about because after you were married, your husband, who was in the military, was stationed in Germany. You went to Germany. You have one child together.
Yes, ma'am.
And things didn't work out. You came back to the United States. It is your claim that the military sent some property after he left the military, and some of the property that they sent to his house belonged to you.
That's correct.
Your former husband says that he did, in fact, deposit that check into a bank account. It was a joint bank account, that you withdrew that money from the bank account. And as far as the property is concerned, you had said to him on more than one occasion that you had no interest in any of the property that you didn't take with you when you left Germany.
Yes, ma'am.
When were you married?
We were married June 9th, 2004.
And when were you divorced?
April 12th, 2006.
This refund check was when?
The refund check was, I must be dated in March of 06 or 05, I believe. It was for the 2005-2006 school year.
Well, it had to be 2006. You said it was before the divorce was final.
Yes.
The end of February 2006 is when it was.
Do you have any documentation?
No, sir. No, ma'am. My account's been closed at that bank for over a year now, and they said that the records were not available to me, or their exact
Well,
words.
it's a joint account.
It was a joint checking account with both our names on it. Yes, ma'am.
When did you leave Germany?
January 8th of 2006. These are the bank statements and a copy of the check as well.
I'd like to see them.
Okay.
Because, Mr. Fowler, you would agree that if you deposited the check into the account, which is what you said you did,
Yes, ma'am.
if that same amount was withdrawn by the plaintiff, the bank statement would indicate that, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And I haven't seen it yet. But if it doesn't indicate that that same amount was withdrawn, you would say that you were mistaken, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so let's see what happened. The two of you had separated at that point, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
What were you doing forging her name to this check?
She asked me to.
Tell me about that.
She asked me to sign it and deposit it because I asked her if I wanted her to mail it, and she said no, she did not have a bank account back home yet that she could deposit the check into or get it cash. So she asked me would I deposit it. We both had debit cards to the same account, and I was putting money in the savings account for her to withdraw out of.
You were depositing money for her support and the support of your child?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that right?
That's not correct. I opened a bank account as soon as I returned home to Delaware in January because I began work in February. That check was cashed on April 11th of 2006.
ATM withdrawal, AMT SH transfer. What does that mean?
It means that when he deposited that check, he transferred it into the savings account.
On April 11th. On April 11th, were you speaking to each other? I mean, the divorce was finalized on April 12th.
Probably not, to be very honest with you, Your Honor.
I'd like you to take a look at this, sir. It appears as if you deposited this check on
ma'am.
April 11th, and then it was transferred to another account.
To our savings account where she could get the money out with her debit card in Delaware.
Well, then you should have a joint savings account, sir. Do you have that?
Oh, we had one at the time.
Well,
That
you should
checking
be able
was-
to get that, sir. It comes from the same bank, doesn't it?
I don't have that account no more. Neither one of them. They're both closed.
But she has the information on this account, sir, and it's your problem to establish to my satisfaction that you didn't take this money yourself.
Yes, ma'am.
It doesn't indicate here that she got this money. It indicates here that you got this money.
I deposited it in our savings account and transferred it right to our savings account, right where
Well,
she
then
asked
you
us
should
to.
have brought that information here for me, sir. It's easy to get. We're not talking about something that happened during the Civil War.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. He forgot. All right. Now, the other part of your lawsuit has to do with property.
Yes, ma'am.
What property?
There are some personal property items that when...
You know, I'm relatively unimpressed by this property baloney. You understand that?
Yes.
Okay, because I think you're a smart gal. Why don't you tell me why I'm unimpressed with this property?
Because it's just property.
Because if you wanted it, you should have taken it with you.
At that point in time, I could not, ma'am.
Why?
Because all I could take were the suitcases. I was only allowed a certain number of suitcases.
You don't have to take it with you. You ship it.
He was supposed to do that, Your Honor.
What about you? You're leaving. You say, this is mine. This is yours. You pack it up and you send it. 2 years later, you don't come to court and cry because you don't have what? A music box? What do you want?
Just what's mine.
What?
It's clothing, shoes.
Should have taken your clothing and shoes with
I
you.
took
He
as
doesn't
much as
have.
I could.
He doesn't have your clothing and shoes anymore. I guarantee you, he's not using them.
I hope not.
He doesn't have them anymore. What else?
Items of
They're
our
out
sons.
of style anyway.
Items of our sons.
What?
Toys, clothing.
Your son grew out of the clothing from 2006.
Yes, ma'am.
And he doesn't play with the same toys.
No, he does not.
So what are you making a big deal about?
Well, we've actually been fighting over this since the shipment arrived last May.
It's over. What else are you fighting about with him?
Back child support. But the state of Delaware is handling that.
It's already been handled and arranged to make payments. I've got my child support comes directly out of my with whatever's paid to go back because I was stupid and sent her cash instead of sending her a check every month. So that was my own stupidity, and I admit that. But I'm paying
why
the
did you
back child.
send? Listen to me.
I know.
Why did you send her cash? You mean you put cash in an envelope?
Yes, ma'am.
You put cash in an envelope.
It's illegal. I know.
Right? I'm 6'2". You were in the military?
Yes, ma'am.
You don't want me to think badly of the military, do you?
No, ma'am, not.
Well, then why would you make such a stupid statement that you put cash in an envelope and send it to her? Nobody puts cash in an envelope. I don't even put $1 in an envelope to send it to my grandchildren. Don't you watch 20/20 and 60 Minutes and everything else, what goes on? Cash doesn't arrive. $5 doesn't arrive. How much were you putting in cash in the envelope?
Anywhere from $200 to $400.
Ah!
And she got it every time.
She got it every time. Really? Did you get the $200 to $400 that he sent you in cash?
Every month.
Every month.
No, ma'am. He has not paid prior to November 15th of 2006. I have received no money from him except for $200 in February.
How come they didn't take money out of his check?
We have just had the court order established, the state of Delaware.
We just got our child support through the courts just not too long ago, is why the child support just got established.
Well, that's
And the
ridiculous.
custody
You were
battle is
divorced in
still-
April of 2006.
The custody battle is still going on as we speak.
What kind of custody battle?
There is no custody battle, Your Honor.
Last year for his birthday, I drove 12 hours from where I live in Georgia to Delaware to see him on his birthday and got to spend 4 hours with him, at which she walked around the mall with me and my oldest son and Harley and my fiance. Now, she wasn't at the time, and wasn't with him at all.
Why did you bring your girlfriend with you?
Because it's a long drive and she helped me drive. And we had just gotten off work. We went up there in 2 days and came right back. Went up there and came right, I mean, it was just a round-robin trip just to see him for his birthday.
Where did you move to when you left Germany?
I moved back to Delaware and with my parents, who've been very supportive.
Where had you married?
In Delaware.
Delaware.
In Delaware?
Mm-hmm.
And where had you met him?
In Delaware.
In Delaware. Where did you move to?
Georgia.
Georgia?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, listen to me. If I had a child and I wanted to be near my child, a child that was born in Delaware, where I married in Delaware, where I lived in Delaware, I wouldn't have moved to Georgia.
I got another son in Florida also, so
Well, then
I
you
just
got to
moved
learn
back
to
home.
keep
That's
it
all I
zipped,
did.
sir, or at
I
least
don't
get
have
it
to worry about-
geographically suitable.
I got it taken care of.
Geographically suitable.
Yes,
You want to pollinate half the civilized world, sir? I would suggest you do it in the same state. You owe $1,046.09. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
56-year-old Candace Harris is suing her ex-boyfriend, 32-year-old Frank Boswell, for an unpaid loan and for trading in a Camaro that didn't belong to him. Candace claims Frank is a scammer.
Miss Harris, you met the defendant online. Is that how you met him?
Correct, Your Honor.
And according to what I read, you began a relationship with him, and at some point, according to you, you let him borrow a car that you had that you weren't using.
Correct.
And he had the car for many months. The relationship soured. You went to get the car and found out that Mr. Boswell had forged your name to the title of the car and either sold or traded it in for something else.
That's correct.
You also claim that you loaned him some money before this in 2005, and I'm telling you right now, Ms. Harris, I'm not entertaining that. Because according to what you said in your complaint, you sent him this money with the understanding that when he got back on his feet, he would pay you back.
Correct.
That's what you said. Mr. Boswell is going to tell me he never got back on his feet. That's not a loan. It has to be objective, not subjective. Mr. Boswell will tell some people he's on his feet and tell other people that he's not on his feet. You have children, sir?
Yes, I do.
How many?
One.
That child live with you?
No.
You pay child support?
Yes.
As much as the mother of that child wants?
No.
Because you're not really on your feet. See what I mean? Things are very predictable in this life. I could have written this script before I even asked him a question. Now, when did you let Mr. Boswell borrow your car?
He came to see me on September 29th in 2005. It was at my house for many months being unused.
So you let Mr. Boswell borrow it. What was the arrangement?
The arrangement was that he would use my car. He was trying to get his career started in music, rap business, and it would be a nice car for him to drive with a little bit more prestige maybe than what the vans he had. And we never discussed when I would get it back. However, in March...
After he got on his feet.
Yes. In March, I discovered there was other women involved in his life besides me who were also helping him out financially till he got on his feet.
I could have also told you that.
Yes, ma'am. And it escalated to the point where more and more women started showing up. On June 20th was when he sold the car. I have the documents here that show
Now,
it was...
Mr. Boswell, How much did you sell the car for, sir?
I actually didn't sell the car. I traded the car.
How much did they give you for it?
They just traded me another car straight across.
Really?
Yeah,
But you forged her name to the title.
I did that.
You can't do that, Mr. Boswell.
Why would someone give me a car and give me the title if they loaned it to me?
Who paid for the insurance?
She did.
And whose name was the insurance in?
Isn't it hers?
You got my message? It's her car. If she meant to pass title to you, she would have signed the title over to you, and then you would have insured the car in your name.
Then why,
Now!
Then why did she give me the title in
Are
the
you
first place?
asking me a question, smarty pants?
Yes,
Don't you
I am.
ask me a question, sir. I ask the questions, you give the answers. I want to tell you, you may find a lot of women that find you attractive. I am not one of them.
No. I can dig that.
I'm glad you can. What kind of car do you have now?
1990 Lexus LS400.
How many miles did it have on it when you took
276.
it? 276
Yes.
miles? Is that your car?
No,
ma'am.
her car.
My car
her car was a Camaro.
It had 126,000 miles. It was a 95 Camaro.
When I traded it, it had 143,000 miles on it.
What's the blue book value of your car, madam?
It is, Your Honor. It's $4,025.
Is that in good, fair?
That's the medium. It's in the good condition.
Okay. Now, Miss Harris, you seem like an intelligent lady.
I would hope so.
You know the old saying, if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's a duck? Did you ever hear that expression?
Yes, ma'am.
If it walks like a deadbeat and looks like a deadbeat, it's a deadbeat. You're supposed to know the difference at your stage in life.
Correct.
Do you understand? Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $4,000. That's all.
24-year-old Cherie Peterson is suing her former friend, Kevin Outlaw, for a loan to buy a 1999 Lexus. Kevin says Cherie took the car back.
Miss Peterson, you worked with the defendant in the same place?
Yes.
Where was that?
UC Davis Medical Center.
What did you do there?
I do clerical work mostly. We actually still work together, but at the time that everything started, we worked more closely together in the file room, and now I'm doing more of new patient appointment.
Oh, God, that was a long answer. Mr. Outlaw, according to what I read in Miss Peterson's complaint, she was a very good friend to you. You needed a car. You had miserable credit, so you couldn't get a car loan on your own. And you asked her if she would co-sign a car loan for you with the understanding that in 6 months' time, you would be working on your credit to get it back up to snuff, and you would refinance the car, getting her name off the loan. That was your agreement. Is
Yes.
that right?
Yes.
In exchange for that, you were going to do what?
Well, I gave her $200 to do
For
that.
her trouble.
Yes.
And she accepted the $200, and you went down to the car dealership where you had already picked out the car?
Yes, ma'am.
When you got there, according to Miss Peterson, they said, well, she can't just be a co-signer on this loan because it would be much better and your payments would be much less if the title to the car was in her name and all the payments in her name because your credit was really bad, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So Miss Peterson said, okay, you know, it's just going to be for 6 months, right?
Right.
So she allowed her name to be put down on the car, title in her name, and then 6 months go by and you don't get the car out of her name and the loan, right?
Yes.
Why not?
Well, at the time, Your Honor, unfortunately, a couple weeks after I got the car, I went out on medical leave. I had a torn knee tendon in my knee, so I was off for a month. And when I came back, at the time I was working 2 jobs. I was a bartender also, part-time. So I lost my job when I came back. They said I was, overworked, I guess. Also, the car had to be put into the shop a few times. I had to get some repairs done on the car.
None of this is Miss Peterson's fault.
That's right.
This is all your bad luck.
Yes.
Keep going.
Okay, so the second income is gone, so I've had to get the repairs done on the car, which really cost me a lot. So I wasn't able to work on my credit like I was supposed to.
And you had creditors because why, sir? Because you
Bad-
didn't pay your bills?
Bad decisions, yes.
Bad decisions isn't the reason for bad credit. You didn't pay your bills.
Okay.
And how many people did you stiff? How many credit card companies did you stiff?
Credit cards are probably 2.
In what amount, sir?
I think one was 600 and something, and I can't really remember the other one.
Anybody else?
Maybe some phone bills, cable bills.
Phone, cable, credit cards. Also, not Miss Peterson's fault. Is that correct?
Correct.
So this is what happened. After the 6 months, Miss Peterson said, I want my name off of this loan. This was our agreement. And she said, if you don't get my name off of this loan, I'm taking the car back. Right?
Correct.
and you didn't get a loan, and she took the car back, right?
Correct.
And she sold it, correct?
Correct.
And there was a shortfall on the loan.
Correct.
Which you want him to pay.
Correct.
I'll hear you.
Well, I don't understand how I owe, Your Honor. I mean, I held up my end of the bargain as far as the 6 months.
No, you didn't.
I didn't?
No, you didn't. Your contract with her, 6 months' time, you would get this loan out of her name.
We don't have a written contract.
You
Your
don't
Honor.
have to have a written contract. You've just testified, so that was your contract with her. In exchange for $200 for 6 months, she would allow her name to be used on this loan, and you agreed contractually with her that within 6 months' time, that loan would be out of her name. You failed to fulfill your obligation. Your obligation was to make the payments and get her name off that car loan so that she didn't have to hook her star to your galaxy because you are an accident looking to happen. How much was the shortfall on the car?
I had to come up with about $5,500.
Show me.
Here's the bill of sale and also what I had to come up with. The receipt shows $5,517, I think, and the other is the bill of sale, which the person bought the car for $14,000, and I owed $19,500.
Miss Peterson, how old are you?
I'm 24.
Did you graduate from college?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
You didn't take a course in practical skills.
I didn't take logic, no.
Never do this again.
I won't. I've learned a big
For the
lesson.
boyfriend, for the husband, for your cousin. Nobody.
I've learned.
Have you?
Yes. About $5,000 worth of learning.
That's a lot of saving.
Yeah.
Judging for the plaintiff in the amount of $5,000. You owe her the money.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
20-year-old casino dealer Melissa O'Bannon is suing her ex-boyfriend, 21-year-old Josh Carney, for rent and for stealing from her bank account.
Miss O'Banion, according to what I read in your complaint, you and the defendant were involved in a relationship for about 5 years. Is that right?
Yes.
How old are you?
20.
20. And you?
21.
And how many of those years was spent playing house together in the same apartment?
About 2.5.
And who are these people?
That is the witness and my new girlfriend.
And this person?
That is my mom.
According to your complaint, Miss O'Banion, the defendant made some unauthorized withdrawals from your ATM, and he agreed to pay you back. Mr. Carney says that he never made any unauthorized withdrawals from your bank account. You never made any loans to him. You also say he owes you for some rent and for some property.
Yes.
Mr. Carney says he didn't take any property that didn't belong to him, that all he really wanted to do was to separate from you and do so in a clean way, and you should divide the property that you accumulated together amicably, and you refused to do that. Right?
Correct.
For the 2.5 years you were living together, Miss O'Banion, what kind of work were you doing?
I was working for my mom, cleaning offices.
And how much were you earning?
About $1,500 a month.
And what about you, Mr. Carney?
I did a lot of fast food management.
How much did you earn?
Probably about $13.50 a month.
So you earned pretty much the same amount.
Correct.
How did you handle your finances?
We did them separately. We actually had a joint checking account what everything was paid out of.
You had a joint account?
All bills were paid out of the same joint checking account.
Is that right?
For the last year, yes. It was last 2, and it was the whole time.
Fine.
The time we moved in.
Why don't you think about the answers to your questions, Miss O'Banion? What ATM did he make withdrawals from?
It was from my credit card.
Well, in order for somebody to make withdrawals from a credit card, they have to have a PIN number.
He knew the PIN number.
What do you mean he knew it? He got it from you in your sleep?
Well, I used the same PIN number that I used from our checking, and he knew it.
Well, tell me about these unauthorized withdrawals, Miss O'Banion.
The first time he went down and took $100 to go out drinking.
Did he tell you about it?
No, he took it from my wallet, and when he came home from work, I asked him if he knew where my credit card was, and I couldn't find it. He said he never seen it, and the next day it appeared in my wallet.
Well, when it appeared in your wallet, did you ask him about it?
Yes, I did.
And what did he say?
He denied it.
What's next?
A couple weeks later, he had a credit card that was with our previous bank, and he wanted to close that out, and so he took $500 off of it.
Well, did he tell you about that?
We had discussed it, yes, and he said that he was going to pay me back the $500.
Okay. Does that sound familiar to you?
Yes, that one does. The authorized one does. And the other one, anytime any money was taken off her credit card was all, she was with me the whole time, and the authorized was with her. I never had her PIN number.
Okay, so $500 was for your own personal use. So now you don't have the debt on your credit card and she has it on hers.
Correct.
Well, you have to give it back to her. Got it? Okay. What else does he owe you for?
He owes me for rent. He had moved out, I believe it was May 13th, and that's when we divided up all of our stuff, and he gave me the key back. And May 20th was when he got paid. He was supposed to give me $312.
For June's rent?
Yes, which is rent.
And did he give you the half?
No.
Well, who was supposed to pay the rent in June?
Person living in the apartment at the time. I was off the lease.
Well, you weren't off the lease.
I
sir.
was actually, according to the statement I have from the apartments. I was off the lease as of May 27th.
Let me see.
Your Honor, he was taken off the lease after he broke into my apartment. They immediately took him off the lease so he could not go into the apartment again.
Okay. Where did you move in June?
I moved into her apartment.
Step up, please. First time I interviewed a girlfriend that I found them useful. Tell me your name.
Suzanne Olson.
Who do you live with, Miss Olson?
With Josh.
Only?
And his mother. And my 2 kids.
Well, now we're getting there. Josh.
His mom. And
his
my 2
mother.
kids.
And your 2 children?
Correct.
Okay. Whose apartment or house is it?
His mother's.
The original apartment in question.
I'm speaking, Swifty. So you live in his mother's house?
Correct. We just moved there.
When?
When did we move?
That's my question. I need an answer.
In the middle of June.
And where did you live before that?
In an apartment.
With whom?
My 2 kids.
And when did he move into your apartment?
The
with your
middle
2
of
kids?
May.
So he did not pay rent when he moved in with you in the middle of May?
He...
Right. He did not pay rent. Don't play with me, Miss Olson. I'm 10 times ahead of you. We understand each other?
Okay.
And then when you could no longer live in that apartment, you moved in with his mother?
Correct. We moved to the town where his mother lives to get away from everything that was going on.
To get a fresh start.
Mm-hmm.
Is it your intention to get a place of your own?
Correct.
Lovely. Do you personally give his mother any money for rent?
Yes.
How much do you give her?
$300 a month.
And how much do you give your mother?
That's the $150 apiece is what we give her.
Well, why do you give her $150 apiece? She's got 2 children.
The 2 children are cared for by their fathers, by child support and also by her.
You're not following me, sir. There were 4 of you living in your mother's home.
Correct.
So you don't split this in half. Very small percentage of that $300 a month is yours. She's 3 people, and according to you, she gets plenty of child support.
Correct.
In addition to her own salary. So you've got to pay the last month's rent in June. You got it?
Got it.
Perfect. How much is his share?
It is $312.50.
All right, 500 and 312.50. 812. What else do you want from him?
The items he stole, after he gave me back his key and had left, he had a copy that I was unaware about and had gone back and took other items after we
Like
split
what?
up things. He took a digital camera, a TV, which we did pay half and half.
I'm not splitting that up. Go ahead.
He took all the DVDs, and he also took a videotape of my son.
That involved a child. You had a miscarriage, is that right?
It was a stillborn.
Or a stillborn? His?
Yes.
It's a sonogram?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what it is? You have that?
Yes,
You want it?
I do. That's the only item I was able to obtain. Everything else was hidden, so I do want
Well,
it.
then why don't I suggest you do this, Mr.
I offered
Carney?
I offered to make a copy and give it to her.
Fine.
Which I have
Which-
not yet received.
Well, then do it.
We'll do.
Do it 5 days from today. All the rest of those things, you're going to have to get over. You understand? Okay. You owe her $812.50. That's all. Step back.
William Lyle claims his tenant, Christopher Rodriguez, assaulted him during an argument. Christopher is countersuing for harassment.
Mr. Lyle, it is your complaint that the defendant, who's a tenant of yours, assaulted you. You want your medical bills paid. You want damages for pain and suffering. Mr. Rodriguez says that you precipitated this altercation and that you tried to have him evicted, and you had no basis for that. What kind of unit do you rent to Mr. Rodriguez, Mr. Lyle?
Your Honor, I 1-bedroom apartment.
How many units are in the building?
There is 4 units in this building.
When did you lease him the apartment?
I leased the apartment to Mr. Rodriguez on March 12th of this year.
And what's the term of the lease?
It's a 1-year lease, Your Honor.
Would you tell me the date of this altercation?
The altercation was on March 26th.
Tell me what happened.
On March 26th, I responded to Mr. Rodriguez's apartment where there had been a plumbing problem.
Is that correct so far? You had a plumbing problem on March 26th.
Yes, that I...
The answer is either yes or no. You had
Yes.
a plumbing problem.
Yes, I did.
And you reported the plumbing problem.
To the apartment manager.
And did the apartment manager see to it that a plumber arrived at your
Yes.
premises? Were you present when the plumber arrived?
Yes, and those are the only two people that
Just
were there.
answer my question.
Okay.
You were present when the property manager arrived with the plumber?
Yes.
Okay, now continue, Mr. Lyle.
I responded
On the 26th.
to the apartment.
Okay.
Responding to the apartment, I observed, yes, there was a plumbing problem. And while I was standing there, I observed over in the front room area on a coffee table what appeared to me to be a bag of narcotics.
What kind of narcotics?
I believed it was marijuana.
Okay, so you saw a bag of marijuana on a table.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I walked over, seized the bag.
Why?
Because it was marijuana, and I didn't allow marijuana in my apartment complex.
You can't do that, Mr. Lyle. You understand that you can't do that. You have no right to take any property out of his apartment. You may have the right to call the police and say, I see something in plain view, but you have no right to take any property out of his apartment. Similarly, if you walked into his apartment and you saw a gun or a rifle, you couldn't take that because he may have had a license for the gun. You have no right to take property. You can report it to the police, but you cannot resort to self-help.
Okay.
Okay, so you took the bag of marijuana, the suspected marijuana, which turned out to be marijuana, correct, sir?
Yes.
Okay, and what did you do with it?
I picked it up and was holding it in my left hand and was standing in a doorway. Just kind of had the bag of narcotics or marijuana in my left hand and had my right hand just bracing myself very leisurely, casually in the doorway like this. And shortly thereafter, Mr. Rodriguez and a friend of his came in the apartment. He started screaming and yelling at me that I was not allowed to be in his apartment. What are you doing here? At that time, I said to him, Christopher, you know, prior to you moving in, we had a conversation where I told you I didn't rent to anybody that smoked marijuana, had anything to do with drugs. You advised me at that time you had nothing to do with narcotics. You didn't smoke marijuana. And I said, listen, you know, I've had numerous complaints from my other tenants that you smoking dope, the smell of marijuana emitted throughout the building. You were causing nothing but problems in the building. At that time, he kept inching closer and closer to me, and I was very surprised he attacked me.
How did he attack you?
He just, what's the word I can use, bull rushed me, charged me. He drove me back about 10 feet into a refrigerator. And as he drove me back, he kind of turned me to the left a little, or to the right a little bit. And I either hit the refrigerator handle or the side of the refrigerator door. And I bounced off the refrigerator door, came back at him, landed on top of him, and I started yelling for my plumber, Kim, and my property manager, who was also in the building at that time, to come on out and help me. And he was able to grab the marijuana back from me. And I yelled at Kim and my property manager to get the marijuana away from them. And I said, look, I said, I'm not going to put up with this anymore. I'm going to file a police report. So I took the bag of marijuana, left the location, went down and got in my car, backed it out of the parking spot.
Where's the marijuana at this time?
At that time, it's sitting on my passenger seat.
All right, so you were stealing his property. That time you were stealing his property.
I guess I was stealing his property, Your Honor.
You were, Mr. Lyle, because I read Mr. Rodriguez's answer, and unless you are prepared to contradict that, Mr. Rodriguez says that he has a prescription for medical marijuana. That's what he says, and I assume that he's prepared to prove that to me today.
Yes.
So if he has a prescription for medical marijuana, even if he didn't have a prescription, you couldn't take it. But if he did have it lawfully, you were stealing property that he had in his lawful possession. And not only that, but you got your plumber to help you.
I guess, Your Honor, we're just a couple of bad citizens.
No, you're not a bad citizen, Mr. Lyle. You're here in a court of law. Now, Mr. Rodriguez retrieved his bag of marijuana from your car because I read your complaint and I read his answer. So far, is that correct?
It's correct.
Did you? That's all I'm asking.
It wasn't a bag.
whatever it was.
And plus, it wasn't on my
Just a
coffee.
second.
Okay.
I didn't get to you yet.
Okay, no problem.
Just answer my questions.
Okay.
Now, Mr. Lyle, we're here in a court of law, and you're asking me to make a judgment on whether or not Mr. Rodriguez had the right to prevent you from leaving his home with his property and to exert any force to do that. That's what you're asking me to decide.
At that time, I had not told him that I was going to leave the apartment with his
You
property.
had it in your hand, sir. And you, in fact, not only did leave with it, but you had managed to get it out of your hand, and you importuned two people to get it back, which suggests to me that you were intending to leave with it. So let's not play with each other, and I want you to understand something. I am very sympathetic from the perspective of a citizen, not a judge, but a citizen, that you have a 4-unit apartment complex, and I don't know whether you had complaints or not, but if Mr. Rodriguez has a prescription for medical marijuana and he smokes it in his apartment, and he may have other people that come over who have similar prescriptions that smoke in his apartment, that smell wafts all over a 4-unit apartment complex. And there might be people, I would be one of them, who would be incensed at that. I want you to understand that.
I understand that, Your
Don't give me that I'm just a bad citizen.
I understand
according
that,
to you.
Your Honor.
This is a legal place. And if Mr. Rodriguez can establish to me that he had a prescription for this, and of course he's going to tell me why he has a prescription for it, right?
Yes.
Then he had the right to stop you from stealing his property. And if he pushed you into the refrigerator, that's what he did to get his property back. And you called 2 other people to get the marijuana back from him. All very bad judgment, Mr. Lyle, on your part. Because if you're a landlord, if you have a tenant who's violating any conditions of the lease, you take him to court to have him evicted, which I assume you did.
Yes, I did, Your Honor.
And that was denied.
Yes, it was, Your Honor.
Well, that's unfortunate. So now that's unfortunate for you, but that's what the law is.
Yes.
All right.
You know, Your Honor, someplace, somewhere down the road of justice, somebody's got to hold this guy responsible for something. I've got a 4-unit building that he and his posse are holding hostage.
Yeah. Mr. Lyle, hey. Mr. Rodriguez, look at me.
Excuse me, Your Honor, excuse me.
Look at me.
Yes.
You understand that I have a certain sympathetic ear towards what he's telling me.
Yes, I do.
I mean, I would like to be able to pick up the phone and call the other 3 tenants that are in the building and find out if any of them have complained to him because of the smell of your marijuana. It's not particularly relevant, but it bothers him that that kind of activity is going on in your home. He should have been more careful about who he rented to. Now, how long have you had a prescription for medical marijuana?
I've had it since 2 years ago, but my new one is 1/30/09. That's the date of this statement. Because
I'd like to see it, please.
I got an accident when I was a kid, and so I kind of have a little neck injury. So, because my head kind of went through the windshield when I was like out of high school.
What do you do for a living, Mr. Rodriguez?
I'm in sales. I'm a sales representative.
How old are you, Mr. Rodriguez?
38.
And when was this accident that you had?
There was 2, one in 91 and 92, where my head went through the windshield and I basically was like dead on arrival. So I've had like a...
Don't tell me what you have, Mr. Rodriguez.
Okay. Well, I have a neck injury.
I heard you had a neck injury twice.
Okay. And then I got prescribed to be on like anti-inflammatory medication, but I don't really like to pop pills, you know, because I'm an athlete. I'm a surfer. So I don't really like how it feels.
You're a surfer?
Yes.
Oh. Give this back to him. Mr. Lyle, I understand your frustration with him. I got it. This serious life-threatening condition that he has is, in my judgment, and I'm not a medical professional, but for somebody who surfs as a hobby.
Yeah.
It was moving around. It would seem to me you wouldn't do that if you had a serious neck condition that requires you to take prescribed cannabis.
Cannabis.
Cannabis. Yes. Whatever it is. Marijuana. Instead of taking an anti-inflammatory that might help you. So I want you to understand, Mr. Lyle, I have sympathy for him because I do believe that there are some people who have really serious medical conditions that can benefit during a course of serious treatment from the use of medical marijuana. Yeah. And then there are those people that abuse it. And there are those people that abuse it by prescribing it to people who abuse it. Yeah. And that's the problem. I'm speaking.
Okay.
Now, if your hobby is playing the piano or playing the violin, I might have a little more sympathy. But if your hobby of choice at age 38 with a serious neck injury is surfing, my sympathy level for you is about 0. You got where I'm coming from, Mr. Rodriguez.
I understand.
Mr. Lyle, unfortunately, I have to dismiss your case, just as the housing court judge dismissed your case, and probably with equal frustration, at least I hope, because you couldn't do what you did. And Mr. Rodriguez had a right to retrieve his property and use lawful means to do that. I mean, he couldn't take a knife out and stab you to get his marijuana back or take out a gun and shoot you. But he had a right to try to get his property back, which he eventually did. Now, Mr. Rodriguez has a counterclaim because he says you've been harassing him. He's been harassing you, Mr. Rodriguez, because he'd like you out of his complex.
Okay.
Mr. Rodriguez, if you were a nice person, you would go find a nice complex where you wouldn't be irritating other people and you wouldn't be irritating the landlord. But you don't have to do that, and he has to suffer with you until March.
He's not having to suffer whatsoever. I'm having to suffer.
Well, you don't have to suffer. There are 2 choices for you not to suffer. Either he sells his apartment building or you move.
Well, there's no...
Just a second. Okay. Those are the 2 choices.
I'm not moving because I've
That's right. So you're not moving. So stay there, and if you want to stay there and continue to do what you do, you'll live out the term of your lease, and then he'll get rid of you.
The case is that he lost in court, and he also lied in court, and he continues to lie in court.
Just a second. Listen to me.
Okay.
I don't care whether he rummaged through your closet or if he found the combination to your safe. Okay. It's not that I'm finding that because he saw this marijuana in plain sight, he was able to take it. Yeah. He wouldn't be able to take it if it was hanging from a chandelier in front of his nose. So whether he went in and looked through your closet or whether he saw it on a table, it's irrelevant. He had no right to take it.
Which I understand.
Hey, stop talking, sir.
Okay.
I'm telling you that if he tried to have you evicted because he believed that it was injurious to his property, that was his right. That's what a court is for. And if the judge in housing court wanted to impose some sort of punitive costs on him, I assume that the judge would have done that. I have no intention of doing that for you in this case. So take your sore neck.
Well, I haven't even got to explain my side of the story.
Just a second. I told him he was wrong. I'm dismissing his case. Why do you have to explain your story?
Because you're already judging me before you...
Just a second.
Okay.
I'm dismissing his case against you. You want to say something else, Mr. Rodriguez?
No, I do not, but I...
Very good. That's all. Out.
Parties are excused. You may step.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người. Chào mừng mọi người đã quay trở lại channel của mình. Hôm nay mình sẽ hướng dẫn mọi người cách làm một chiếc thiệp có dán hình con mèo nhé. Ở đây mình sẽ sử dụng tờ giấy màu hồng và trắng. Tiếp theo phụ gồm có thước, kéo, bút chì, bút màu, hồ keo. Giờ chúng ta sẽ bắt tay vào làm nhé. Đầu tiên thì mình sẽ kẻ kích thước của chiếc thiệp. Mình sẽ kẻ với kích thước là 7 x 7. theo thì mình sẽ vẽ hình con mèo nhé. Sau đó mình sẽ cắt hình con mèo ra. Như vậy là tấm thiệp của mình đã hoàn thành xong. Nếu như mọi người cảm thấy video này hay và có ích, hãy để lại cho mình một like, share và đăng ký kênh nhé. Hẹn gặp lại mọi người ở những video tiếp theo.